council agreement for Mr. Jeffrey Burns.
Okay, and want to just, where would you like us to interject that into the agenda during the?
Mr. Baumann, where do you recommend that item be placed?
I would suggest it be placed right after the TDC discussion, the next item.
Okay, so that would be under city manager report, item G. So it'd be between item G and item H. So we'll call it G.2.
And
All
then
right.
if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor? Vote is unanimous, so moved. All right, item 1A, approval of minutes of May 17th, 2021, regular city council meeting. I'll
So
entertain a motion. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Let me clear the docket here. All in favor? The vote is unanimous, so moved. All righty then. We do not have any proclamations or recognitions or special presentations today, so you don't have to hear me whereas tonight. So, we're going to start with item 3, public comments on the agenda items that are not public hearings and any other matters not on the agenda. We do have a public hearing, so if you have anything to comment on the public hearing that's listed on the agenda, I ask that you refrain from making those comments here during the first public comment period. You'll have 3 minutes, and when you come up, you just state your name and your address, and we'll let it go from there. I'll start at this end of the room over here, so come on up, ma'am.
Good evening, Carrie Harburger, Spring Lane. Thank you and happy 4th of July. Oh, I wasn't seeing on here that we were actually going to discuss the county issue with the extension. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get another public comment. The extension in Crystal Beach with the popsicle stands out there. We had a small issue with it, and I want to address our council with it. I talked to the TDD lady, and I probably shook her a little bit. It was pretty upsetting pre-4th of July to go out there and see that we were giving away free stuff. Thought we were going to break free from free stuff, but anyway, hopefully that we can come up with something different than giving away free product out there, and it was just a little something I wanted to, hopefully we'll discuss later. I wasn't sure if I was going to get another minute to speak, and I wasn't sure what Jennifer really had in mind. And doing away with that and changing whatever they have. I didn't hear any ideas, and furthermore, I wanted to let this council know that none of the businesses within the city limits were contacted to work with that program. So, just letting our council know. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody up? I'm working my way across. Anybody want to come up here from the middle? Come on up, sir. State your name and your address. You have the mic. 3 minutes. Press.
Good evening. My name is Larry Caesar. I live at 14 Indian Bayou Drive in Indian Bayou here in Destin. I have a couple of comments and a question regarding an item on the city manager's agenda, namely the helicopters. Yesterday at my house, it was like living next to a demilitarized zone. At one point, I thought we were, even though I knew better, I thought we were under invasion from the Ruskies out of Cuba. It was a scene right out of Red Dawn. I was expecting paratroopers. There were more helicopters flying yesterday than I've seen in quite some time. Now, I tell you this because I attended the Okaloosa County Commissioners meeting on June the 6th, and I, along with many, many other people, raised their concerns and irritation regarding the noise of the helicopters. Since that time, I have been sending emails to the county commissioners as well as calling the Fly VPS hotline, registering complaints. And my point that I want to make tonight is My observation since that time is the behavior of the helicopter pilots is not going to change unless they are forced to. The owner of the company was also at that meeting, and had anyone with a reasonable nature listened for 2.5 hours to those comments and then did absolutely nothing in a good faith effort to change their behavior, then I don't believe that anything short of forcing them to fly different routes to minimize the news is going to work. And so that is my point. The other point I would make is I would encourage those of you who are taking notes and anyone who might be listening to continue to call the Fly VPS complaint line. That number is 850-609-4711. And I can tell you that the people on the other end of that line are very responsive to your calls and complaints, as are the county commissioners, Mel Ponder in particular. And so I would encourage you to keep calling and keep complaining about that, because those are logged, those are documented, and unless you make your voice known, unless you stand up and express your concerns about this, it is simply not going to change. I believe they're profit motivated, and unless we take a baseball bat, it's not going to work. My question that I have tonight is, and I assume the answer is yes, but does the city have someone as a representative on the group that is negotiating the new contract? That's my first question, and part B of that is, how is the public being represented in the negotiation of that contract? And you can answer that whenever you like, sir. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would you like to answer that question, Lance?
Sure. I believe at the last council meeting, it could have been two meetings ago, Ms. Kimberly Kopp, who's our land use attorney, was asked if she would play that role for us and serve on that committee.
Thank you, Lance. I just wanted that on the public record. All right. Up next, from the center row. Come on up, sir.
Evening, council members. My name is Stephen Tatum from Matthews and Jones. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner of 355 Gulf Shore Drive. I'm sure that address is probably familiar to several of you. Just wanted to, there's been a lot of talk the last couple of meetings about that property, and I wanted to clarify some things that maybe weren't very accurately spelled out at the last couple of meetings. That property was purchased by 355 Gulf Shore LLC in October of 2020, $1.6 million purchase. The primary member of that LLC is Mr. Johnny Mosley. He's here tonight and would like to speak with you guys also. In November of 2020, we applied through our contractor, and received a permit for an interior demolition, and then subsequent to that started removing walls, and then went ahead and applied in February 5th of 2021 for the interior build-out permit. In between that permit being issued and our interior demolition getting done, they began erecting walls per the plans that had been submitted, although a permit wasn't issued for them. That's standard practice. You go ahead and take your wall up to the point where you're ready for an inspection. You know, you don't go past that inspection point, but you can go ahead and put your wall up, and then if the permit's not approved, well, then you've got to move some stuff. But that's just typical way construction works. So the city found out about the interior build out from someone, not sure who, but code enforcement came out, inspected, and said, no, you can't do that, stop work order. So we ceased construction on the inside until the permit was actually issued. Permit for interior build out was issued, started back to work. Sometime after February 5th, there was a change order to place the rooftop deck. And I'm sure y'all have heard about the rooftop deck, but let me tell you about the house. The house itself, the entire roof is a rooftop deck. There's railings all the way around the perimeter of approximately 2,000 plus square feet of rooftop. So Mr. Mosley, thinking clearly, I think, decided, hey, let's limit the area these people can access up here on the roof. So put in a 20 by 20 rooftop deck as a change order to it, which is, again, standard procedure. You do have to get a permit for your change order, but you can go ahead and do your change while you're in the middle of construction. So started that process, got reported by somebody. Stop work order issued for the rooftop deck until a permit can be applied for. So we contacted the architect and started getting those drawings in place to do the permitting. Not long after that, let's see here, that was on May 14th that stop work order was issued. Then on June 7th, at that city council meeting, the McCrawls, which are the neighbors next door, showed up and complained about our project just in general because of the size of it and adding, turning it into a 10-bedroom house. And during that meeting, there was a lot of stuff said that was completely not accurate. But the very next day, we got a stop work order again for the rooftop deck. So we ceased work on the rooftop deck. Probably a day later, maybe 2 days later, HIA complains because our posts for our rooftop deck are too tall. They're exceeding the height limitation out there. So we went in and removed the posts because they had not been cut to size. I mean, the posts were brought up to the roof full length and they were going to be cut to size. So removed the posts. They call and report us for continuing construction on the rooftop deck. And then we get a stop work order for the entire project. Once we got that stop work order, it also included the request that we provide our information on the evaluation of improvements, which is the first time that was ever issued. And that was on June 9th that they made that request. Noel made that request. We were provided them on June 10th an itemized construction costs for all the property, or all the portions that FEMA requires you to provide. So FEMA, I don't know if you've been walked through this or not, but in order to not have to meet all the current standards for building, you can not exceed the cost of the current structure by more than 50% with your new improvements. However, there's only certain portions of those improvements that apply, because if you went in and put a $100,000 appliance package in the house, well, obviously that's not going to apply to the actual cost of construction. That's just you picking out something expensive to put in the house. So we provided the pertinent information, verified by staff that it was correct. Stop work order was lifted, and now we're back here today. There's still been some other complaints, but I think we've rectified everything. But I wanted to tell you all that so that you know that Mr. Mosley is not the bad actor here. He's not a bad actor. He's trying to do things the normal course of the way things are supposed to be done. He's applied for the permits he's supposed to get. He's received them. The rooftop deck permit we do not have yet, but if that is, they ask for more information from us. But if we don't get it, then the rooftop deck just comes down. It's just that simple. We'll remove it. So I'm telling you all of that to know that this is more about neighbors not liking a project that was properly permitted, and although they may not agree with the rule, it's still 2 per bedroom plus 4, so you're going to maximize that value when you're going to do a short-term rental. But just wanted you guys to hear that from me, and now Mr. Mosley's going to come up and just talk a little bit about himself so y'all understand unless you have questions for me.
Any questions? I let him go over, so
That's fine.
go ahead.
I have a
I'll work
question,
this
but
way.
it's geared more, I think, towards Ms. Bell or staff. And it was the comment about the walls going up before the permit. Is that indeed standard practice, just for my own peace of mind?
A lot of contractors perceive that to be standard practice, but a permit, when issued, is then the authority to proceed with any construction.
And I don't deny that, but I'm just saying standard practice is what I mean. But yeah, she's absolutely correct. That it is a technical violation. And if they had put sheetrock up and covered up the electrical, then that's obviously a violation, because now you've covered up an improvement that can't be inspected, so it's all got to come down,
Go ahead, Kevin.
Lance, do you know, or Joey, violation to advertise short-term rental on a website whenever you're not currently approved to do short-term rentals?
Kim, are you online?
I am. That is a violation. You cannot advertise if you don't have your short-term rental registered with the city.
Thank you. So either you or the owner, why are you violating that if you're going to continue to advertise for a short-term rental that you haven't applied for yet?
There's only one website where it's still up, and somehow that has been beyond our control to get it down. We contacted all of them, told them to take them down. Actually, we told them to cease doing rentals to begin with. They ceased doing rentals, but they left them up. So then we contacted them again, please pull them down, and it's just that one, floridarentals.com, that we've just not been able to get down. I don't know if it's staying in cache. You know how things get on the internet, they don't go away type thing. But that one just is not coming down for some reason. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for letting me go over.
All right, next. Clear the timer. Steve, I'll let you go way past the 3 minutes because you really answered some questions I think a lot of our council members had from all the back and forth over the last month and a half. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys giving me a few minutes to speak also.
Name and address.
Johnny Mosley, 355 Gulf Shore Drive. To address Kevin's question real quick is, I'm not actually advertising that house. I hired a third-party management company who's responsible for advertising it and managing it. And when this issue came up before, we did notify them in writing that they needed to make sure they complied with, the policies, whatever they may be, so that I didn't keep getting blamed for that policy being violated. But look, I just wanted to introduce myself. I grew up here, local. I went to high school at Freeport High. I joined the Marines, spent 4 years in the Marines, and over the last 14 years, I built the nation's largest multifamily renovation construction company. So I know this type of work. I know these issues. I know what it takes to remodel one of these properties. And we're in the process of moving our primary residence here on Holiday Isle. We're getting ready to build our own beach house that we're not going to rent out. But I love this area. I bring my kids here every summer. I've spent countless weeks and months here. And looking at the last, I wanted to be here because there's two sides to every story. I've watched when somebody told me that I've got to watch the city council meetings. I couldn't believe the things that I was hearing. My neighbors come up here and grossly misrepresent the facts. And seeing it take a life of its own up here with the city council where, and I can quote, but I've been called a criminal. I've been stated that I'm defrauding the city of Destin, that you guys were discussing, spent 10 minutes talking about how you can take me to court, whether it's city court or the magistrate, whether it's fine me the maximum amount of day to punish this criminal who doesn't care about the rules. You guys talked about whether I can be put in jail because of this. Taking me to court and foreclosing on my house was discussed 2 council meetings ago. One of the city council members who drove by there the previous Saturday was stunned that I had the balls, excuse my French, to completely remodel that house under a stop work order, as if I just put my middle finger up and just did whatever I want. But the whole time, I had a legitimate approved permit. I was doing work that was in compliance with the city, and the stop work order was specific to the wooden platform that I built on top of an existing roof deck. So that's the other side of the story. That's the truth, as ultimately was found out time and time again. I would get a letter. I feel like I've been harassed and targeted. City ordinance basically shows up at my job site every other day. Sometimes it's legit. They were there today because there was trash left in front of the building. So anyway, in closing, it appears that this journey is not over, that the other parties, my neighbors and the HOA, are going to continue to battle me and try to keep me from being able to complete this house. And of course, I've got my own representation, but I at least wanted to come up here and talk about how it's kind of crazy what's happened so far. And there's a much better way to handle this by let's just pick up the phone and say, hey, let's come in and talk about these issues, because I just want to comply with what I'm supposed to. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah.
Mayor, I have a question.
Sure. Is
Sir,
it for Mr. Mosley?
Mr. Mosley, I'm sorry. I had a question for you. I'll wait till you get to the mic.
I can't see.
So, do you currently live in Destin or in Holiday Isle?
I do.
Okay, so you can see, the houses that are there and...
Absolutely. I've
So-
stayed at Holiday Isle for every summer for the last 10 years.
Wonderful. And so the house you're building, you're going to live in that one?
I am.
Okay, so the one that we're talking about tonight is for rental only?
Well, both. Of course, I bought it as an investment property, but to be honest, it's my favorite house so far. But I also own another house in Holiday Isle, 16 Magnolia, which I'm staying in right now.
Okay, I just wanted to find out sort of what the
I
plans
got a couple
were.
more questions for
Okay.
council members.
Yes,
Go ahead.
ma'am?
And you have to understand, we didn't hear the second half of the story.
I understand.
All we heard was there's going to be 40 people and 30 cars, and there's no way to do it. And the pictures they show us, there's nowhere to park. You're butted up to their property. Real quick question here is, what is your full intent head count to sleep in that
Sure.
unit with the rules of how many cars
Yeah.
and how many people?
So the city of Destin rules change whenever they change to limit people, and it says that you can have only 2 people per bedroom and 4 in the common area. So in order to have the maximum occupancy, you have to have 10 bedrooms. And to have 10 bedrooms, you have to have 10 parking spots. So I comply with every one of those, and in fact, it's been approved. The reality is the average number of people that stay in a house that can sleep 24 is 12. That's been my experience at my other investment properties. So do I ever expect there to be 24 people there? No, I don't. Could they? Sure. But it's just really to capture the highest possible revenue and to comply with the city of Destin ordinance that says you can only have 24 people. If I could have done 6 bedrooms or 7 and still got 24, I actually would have rather done that. I would have had more space for social area, et cetera.
Any other questions?
It is a 6,000 square foot house, though, plenty of room for 10 bedrooms, which is why I bought it. I knew that going into it.
Just real quick, Mr. Mosley, thanks for being here. Our understanding and what we've been told and what we've been convinced to believe is that you closed in the downstairs and that there's going to be a bunk room that sleeps 20 people. There's bunk beds.
24.
Just in the downstairs.
Well, I'm converting an existing RV bay, which was 35 foot long, 22 foot high, and 14 foot wide, into a massive, giant inside of a pirate ship with cannons mounted on the walls, 12 different bunk beds. Do I really think there's going to be 24 people in that bunk room? No, but it's an experience I'm creating, for that entire bay that happens to have 12 different bunks. They can pick whichever one they want.
So there's 9 bedrooms
Plus the bunk room.
downstairs that sleeps.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd also
Infinity.
say it's pretty traditional. Most houses I rent on Holiday Isle, big enough for me and my family, all have multiple bunk rooms that might sleep 12. It's not unusual to see that. But mine is huge because it's going to be, it's like a little theme park in that room. Pirate ship.
Thanks, sir.
Okay?
Sir, just one more, sir, if you don't mind. I heard what you said about the pirate theme park, and it sounds very exciting. If you don't intend to have 24 kids, young adults, or whatever sleep in that bunk room, why would you put 12 bunk beds in there if you can only sleep 24 people total in the house?
Sure. Well, because-
So why not put 4 bunk beds and have some more TVs on the wall or something like that? I was just asking.
No,
I'm
we're not
sorry.
going to turn this into a dialogue, this is
Yeah.
public
Sure,
comment.
sure.
Okay, so this will be the last question,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mosley.
Thank you.
And then people will come up, make public comment, and if you want to bring it back up during at the very tail end.
I was just trying to get the intent for
absolutely.
putting 12 beds.
But we're not
you know,
making any
so.
decisions here. I hate
fine.
to cut you off, Kevin, but I just don't
No,
want
that's
to get.
good. I appreciate the owner
Five-
being here. I'd like to.
five-
Look, I'll make
Yeah.
myself available anytime by phone, Zoom, or in person. Just call me.
That'd be awesome. I appreciate that, Johnny.
But to answer your question is, I'm doing it because it's going to be over the top, and I want it to, when you see it for the first time, it's going to just look amazing. They can choose where they want to sleep in the house. Yeah, they could use 4 of the bedrooms, they could put the kids in there, I'll let them choose where they want, but it's experience. Thank you.
And just for the council, we got a lot tonight, and I just don't want to get into running debates with 4 or 5 different members of the public. So let's just hear their comments. If you have a keen question for clarity, that's cool. But otherwise, if you have something that just really piques your interest that you want to bring up legislatively, do it under your name at the very tail end, and because there's public comment after that as well, okay? Just in the interest of time. Public comment is still open. We're still in the middle of the room. So is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak? I see a gentleman approaching. You're already turned on. All you need is your name and your,
Jimmy Perkins, 748 Benning Drive. I'm here because I got a stop notice on my business on Friday. I've done it by the book. A lot of you know me from Jimmy the Ice Cream Guy out on Crab Island the last 15 years. Last year they said that it was going to be my last year, so I had to find a different way to work. So I went, I checked with the city lawyer to see if it was legal if I took pontoons and put licensed Coast Guard captains on it, and the ordinance that you guys wrote, whatever, I am to the letter on it. Took 10 of my kids, paid for them to go to captain school. The ones that have been out there for the last 10 years with me, turned them into captains. The harbor master said I was 100% legit because I got 6 people on a boat with licensed Coast Guard captains. Everything was going good. I turned in my BTR back in May. Then on Friday they come and say nope. With some certain people, I'm not going to drop names here, certain pontoon owners, big names in the county, the city, they feel threatened by my, me coming out putting captains on pontoons. It's all about safety. You don't get any safer than having a Coast Guard captain taking people out there. They come and slap me with a notice, the place that I'm renting from, they slap them with a notice, said that if I continue to rent there, that they're going to fine them, put my jeopardy, my work, everything up. I'm not a great speaker, but I brought some really good people right here that's going to finish the rest for me, and then I'll answer any of you guys' questions because it is not right. Code enforcement man for the last years told me I'm doing everything by the book, and then all of a sudden Joey sends another guy over named Chris who writes me up and says I'm not by the book. So somebody's got to show me where the book is and who's writing it, please.
Thank you, sir.
David?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is David Ott of 1230 North Lakeshore Drive, Niceville, Florida, and I'm here today to speak on kind of the situation at hand. So this new amendment or change to the rule of livery, as I understand it, seeks to redefine what the previous moratorium held as a livery vessel, which, according to the municipal code, for those of you not familiar, a livery vessel is defined by as Florida Statute 32702, but does not mean a vessel under the control of, at all times, by a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. Municipal Code Section 13141. Now, I would like to illuminate and focus on that first section. A vessel under the control always by a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. With this new definition, I fail to see how this could at all contribute to the stated intent of the moratorium, which was, therefore, it is necessary and it is in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare to monitor and provide reasonable means to ensure adherence to state laws and ensure safe and reasonable operation of such livery vessels. Municipal Code Section 13140. By changing the rules and the definitions, this would remove many experienced boaters certified by the Coast Guard from Crab Island, and it would also go against the stated intent and purpose of the moratorium. Now, in doing so, this may create an even greater imbalance of inexperience in the waterways of Destin and create an even greater level of threat to our safety. So, just let's take this as an example. I work on Crab Island selling ice cream. I sell ice cream and t-shirts. I have limited experience in the boating world. I've been boating since I was 10 years old. But with my limited experience, I've been able to instruct countless individuals on how to anchor their boats, how to properly adhere to no wake zones, and how to keep the waterway safe. By eliminating people that are even more experienced and are certified by a Coast Guard than myself from these waterways, we're not only eliminating safe boaters, but we're eliminating people that can help instruct others on the waterways and protect the safety that we are here to uphold. So I hope that you'll reconsider a cease and desist order, as it is preventing useful and helpful boaters from being out on the waterways. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next up.
How are you guys doing? My name is Sean Kitts, 748 Benning Drive, Destin, Florida. I've worked for Jimmy Perkins for the last 4 years now. I'm one of his captains out there on the water. The cease and desist came through and basically defining his boats as livery vessels in Pure and simple, they're not. He runs Crab Island Jimmy's Charters, charter boats, charter company with licensed Coast Guard captains. The cease and desist is threatening the livelihood of Jimmy, the captains, and even the people that he rents from over in Destin. The cease and desist mentions several demands that need to be accomplished in order for him to be a legit operation, and those all come back to it being defined as a livery vessel. After what David said, plain and simple, the pontoons that are rented there are not livery vessels. They are chartered pontoons with U.S. Coast Guard licensed captains. And like Jimmy said, the BTR that was submitted back in May, let's see. The reason that there is no BTR is due to either the city's failure to act or improper categorization of Crab Island Jimmy's Charters as a livery company rather than a charter company. So that is what we're bringing to the attention today. It's a charter company, not a livery company. Plain and simple. So cease and desist is a little extra. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I will take this issue up under my name tonight, later on, okay? Because I got a list of questions and some guidance for the council to look into, okay? Up next, anyone want to speak? This is your chance. Do you have anybody queued up on the internet? Nope. How about you, Ray? Any comments, emails, text messages, nothing? Anyone else want to speak? Okay, at this moment, I'm going to close the public comment period. I want to remind everyone, at the end of tonight's meeting, after we've done our legislative duties and public hearings, there'll be another opportunity for public comment. So at this moment, the public comment period is closed, which leads us to item 4A. Take it away, Lance. This is going to be a long session here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4A is the approval of a contract with 3TP Ventures Incorporated for the mobility plan, including fee schedule and scope of work. We have Mr. Zunguzzi here to address this.
Mayor, council members, good evening. At the council meeting of March 1st this year, you unanimously voted to replace the current multimodal transportation impact program with the mobility plan impact fee-based program. Now, let me take a moment here to refresh everyone on how we got to that motion. As you recall, as a council, you directed me to provide a critique or a review, if you will, of how the MMTD program worked and performed in the city since its inception 16 years ago. As part of that discussion, I outlined for you a review of the history of the program in the city, how that program operated, the impacts of the program, and the options available to the city if the city council chose to go a different direction. At the conclusion of that discussion, you voted to proceed with the mobility plan program. Now, as part of that motion, you directed me to keep the spirit or the benefits of the MMTD. And these, if you recall, are enhanced multimodal level service, increased number of multimodal facilities that are under construction, a focus on multimodal improvements in the city's capital improvement program. Also, you wanted to see a completion of the corridor transportation management plan. I'm talking here about the Crosstown Connector and the Palms Boulevard off of 98. And you also wanted to see the completion of the community parking areas. Along that, you said, equally, you wanted to see all the challenges that are associated with the program addressed. If you recall, these challenges include implementation of all the on-site requirements related to design of multimodal elements of pedestrian, bicycle, and transit areas. Also, the elimination of flexible point scoring system, which allows developers to choose the design elements that they would like to provide. You also wanted to make sure that we address the parking challenges, particularly those in our commercial and mixed-use areas. You also wanted to see a complete update of the impact fee program, which was last adopted back in 2008. Now, to achieve that direction from City Council, the city has to do the following. We have to identify all the transportation improvements and that support development, and also establish an up-to-date mobility plan based on a good, up-to-date impact fee program. Now, just as a refresher here, we talked about this, but I just wanted to make sure that we cover it again, make sure we're all good. We talked about a mobility plan and what it is. It is a plan that provides a blueprint for the city to proactively prioritize multimodal projects to meet the growth and mobility needs of the community in a manner that's consistent and coordinated with the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. As far as the mobility fee itself, it is a fee paid by developers to mitigate the impact of development and also to help fund improvements that are needed to support development. And once again, I would like to refresh everyone on why we decided to move towards the mobility fee program. First of all, it provides the city a proactive approach of addressing the city's growth, travel, and mobility needs consistent with the comprehensive plan. It provides the city greater flexibility in the collection and use of funds. Also, it gives the City Council the maximum leverage to promote desired development in the city. And then, in my view, it provides a sense of fairness because mobility fees are shared by all developments that are creating the need for transportation system improvements. There's always a state statute that governs most of the things that local government do. And in our case, there is a specific statute that governs the creation of mobility plans. Specifically, I think the city is in a great position to implement a mobility plan program. The state statute requires that we adopt 6 policies. We have already adopted 4 of those, namely, the need to provide a long-term strategy or strategies that support multimodal solutions in the community. Adoption of area-wide level of service that is not dependent on only one singular road segment. Also, the promotion of safe multimodal transportation environment, and then the establishment of a multimodal level service standards. All those policies are currently in our comprehensive plan today. So we got 4 of those. The last 2 that are contained in state statute relate to exempting or discounting fees for locally desired development. That's something that you could incorporate if you so wish. The scope of work that's associated with the work that I'm talking about here is this. We will have to undertake a carrying capacity to study the services and infrastructure that's going to be required to support projected development. We're also going to need to come up with an actual mobility plan that outlines the specific projects and services by area needed to support development. And then finally, we need to prepare and calibrate a mobility-based impact fee. There will be a robust public participation process throughout all of this, and that will include the City Council, the local planning agency, the Public Works and Safety Committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, the Town Center CRA, the Harbor CRA, and public work sessions with the community. So let me conclude with this. I know I'm asking for a significant amount of resources at a time when we have a lot of competing needs in the community. However, as your Director of Development, here's my take to this. Every comprehensive plan in every community has a shelf life. And contained in that plan are the vision, values, and policies for development that should be attained during the course of that plan. And so, in order for that vision, those values, policies to be effectively implemented during the lifespan of that plan, we need to have all the tools and programs that will necessarily drive and implement that plan. That is why, as you know, over the past couple of years, we have, at your discretion, been diligent in updating and aligning our future land use map, our zoning map, with the comprehensive plan. And currently, we're updating our land development code so that it too will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. To that end, I'm saying we need to complete that effort by adopting an impact fee program so that for the first time in the city's development history, all of the tools, and I mean all of the tools, that implement the city's vision, development policies, can be attained during the course of the lifetime of our comprehensive plan. That has not happened, and I think we should strive to do that. That's the whole purpose of ensuring that we achieve things that we call out in the comprehensive plan. With that, I respectfully ask for your support to move forward with this program. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Up first, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Louis. I really appreciate the presentation and all the information. Just one question about specific on the scope of work for Phase 1. It talks about replacing the Harbor District study, last updated in 2016, parking study, Harbor District parking study. Do we have a lot of studies and surveys going on currently that are all kind of looking at the Harbor District parking? I just want to make sure we're not overlapping services by multiple firms and paying for it if it's not needed.
Yeah, to answer your question, there isn't one currently related to parking, so this will be an important one to have because the last one, as you mentioned, was that far back, and so we need to update that.
So there's no other firm analyzing harbor parking along businesses, restaurants, livery operations, and reporting back to the city that we're paying a consulting firm?
Not related to this task up here. As you know, the harbor capacity study will do some counts, but those are from a different perspective altogether.
Okay.
This one is so specific to the essence of eventually coming up with a fee that development will have to pay for.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm sure you're very aware of it all. I just want to make sure we're not getting three things, same
Yes.
thing 3 different times, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, one of those things that the manager and I have been very diligent about is trying to get a full scope of what has happened in the past and what we need to do now to ensure that we move forward in much more coordinated fashion. And the answer to your question is no, there isn't. This will be the very first one to be done since the last one.
Louis, I got two items I want to ask you about. First, is it carrying capacities already known on our existing roads? Because we've had, over the last 5 years, we've had multiple different studies, including the crosstown connector, which isn't done yet, but there's that carrying capacity is already being evaluated. We've got the Cybert, Calhoun area done. So it's almost like on Kevin's line of questioning, is that going to be replicated? Because those carrying capacity studies would apply to what you're doing here.
Yeah, that provides the baseline of what we have today. But the carrying capacity we're talking about here is based on what we have on the future land use element of the comprehensive plan.
So they'll be evaluating
Projected
future
development.
projected development based on the properties that are still undeveloped, or redevelopment in the
Correct.
future pursuant to our comp plan and the LDC and that kind of stuff. So that's
Correct.
where some of that money is. Lastly, is one of the main focuses of this, because we've talked about it, I know I have with staff on some of these big developments that we've approved just since I've been mayor. Some of the fees, impact fees, are minuscule compared to the real impact to the community from those said projects. And part of that problem, I think, has been, you said a key word earlier, was transparency to the developer or the redevelopers of certain Will this address that to where they know going in what it's going to look like, the impact fees? Is this going to kind of set the table, what you're proposing us to spend money on?
Correct. I think that's one of the key elements that will be tied to the current program that we have just put in place, the campus, where everything is going to be transparent. You see where things stand. But yes, when the fees are calculated, you would know by development type what you would need to pay. Our biggest challenge right now is at the time when the fees were previously adopted, they were 32% of what they should be. So right now, if I may just put it as bluntly as I possibly can, we're a cheap date as far as development is concerned.
Yeah, I think most of us agree. Mr. Destin, I got your name. Go ahead.
Thanks, and one of my questions was somewhat along that line. I think if somewhere in the document it said we are collecting 2% of the money necessary to address, and that's what our impact fees are producing now. So it's not hard to come to the conclusion that our impact fees after this study will be dramatically higher. And
That's a fair statement to
pretty
make.
safe assumption.
Yes. I went dramatically, that's.
I understand that.
Yeah,
That's not an objective term. But if you're getting 2% of the money you need, that leaves 98% that you still have to raise.
Yeah. I'd rather say they'll be more in line with what they should be.
Well, that's a better way of saying it,
Right.
Louis. And the point being that it'll be dramatically more. The other question I have is, I see that we have this budgeted by a transfer from the general fund. What do we have left in the general fund? Anytime I see transfer from the general fund for over $250,000, it always gives me pause to wonder what's left and how many times can we do that and there won't be any general fund?
You're up,
I can
Crystal.
address that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, this year we had budgeted $2 million of general fund money to go towards beach acquisitions. So this is a transfer because we're not, one of those beach acquisitions was delayed, and in addition, we've received more Okaloosa half-penny funds than anticipated. So now we have adequate funds from the Okaloosa half-penny to take care of that third beach acquisition, which we're expecting to happen this fall. So we've been ticking away at, and there were two other projects that I don't have in front of me, that have been put off because we didn't budget enough. Well, one was the Destin bathrooms. So we're repurposing those general fund dollars towards this impact fee study. And we have put better money that's more appropriate for these uses, and we put better amounts into this coming budget that we're going to adopt and that we will review on Monday, this coming Monday evening.
Sounds a lot like a policy decision to me. Which, of course, is what I want all of the council to understand. When we take $250,000 out of that general fund, it is a policy decision. And if we don't pay close attention to what policies we're making, then we will run out of the options to have policy decisions. Now, I'm going to vote for it because I've been one of the biggest advocates of the deficiencies of our multimodal, but we just need to watch the money we're spending. $250,000 here, $250,000 there, after all, it gets to be real money. So,
I don't know about you, but $250,000 real money.
I'll move that we approve.
Okay.
Second.
I got a motion, I have a second. I have Dr. Ramswell and Ms. Abear.
I was going to make the motion. Same here.
Yep, okay. Well, then we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved.
Item 4B is staff asking for council's approval of Resolution 21-07, which is determining the necessity to acquire certain properties for public use. And we have Mr. Warren to introduce this item.
Yes, Mayor and Council. This is part of our beach acquisition project, as you are aware. We did enter into contracts for 3 different properties in the Crystal Beach area, immediately adjacent to Short Crystal Beach. One of those did fall through. It was terminated by the seller. And at this point, Mr. Bowman, if you can help me out on that, I appreciate it.
Yes, so the last parcel that the seller terminated is the big white house next to the city's existing park property in Crystal Beach. The options for the city at this point are to potentially initiate the condemnation process through eminent domain proceedings. This resolution would institute the very first step of that process. If the council were to pass this resolution, what would happen is city staff and the attorney's offices would have the authority to take a good faith offer to the property owner. We did have to procure a new appraisal to that end, and the appraised amount is roughly $5.3 million at this time. The county did commit at its last meeting, not the meeting today, but the meeting before, to maintain its 59% funding commitment. So the city would have a 41% funding commitment. Due to our previous acquisitions, I believe we would have to time this into our next fiscal year, so it would take place in October or later. If the council passed the resolution, we would take that good faith offer to the property owner. If he was so inclined, we could enter into a voluntary purchase agreement and acquire the property that way. If we were not so inclined, then the resolution does give the attorney's offices authority to instant eminent domain proceedings, or the council could direct the attorney's offices to not institute eminent domain proceedings at that time if voluntary negotiations are unsuccessful. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mayor, I was going to move to adopt Resolution 2107.
I have a motion, and I have a second. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I was going to do the same thing with one question, caveat, I guess, is that we do have the option before you guys proceed with those actions to direct you to proceed with those actions if he denies the voluntary.
You certainly could tell us to quit the eminent domain proceedings at any time, including before we were to institute those legal proceedings, and we, of course, comply with that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ramswell?
Thank you. Can you clarify, please, that this was a willing seller, and we went all the way almost to the very end, and it was just a matter of how it was written tax-wise that led to issues at the end. So it's not like we're seizing a property that he didn't want to sell. Is that a correct summation?
That's right, Councilmember Ramswell. So what happened here is the Trust for Public Land has acted essentially as the city's middleman. They have helped facilitate these transactions, and they continue to help facilitate future transactions in this project. The Trust for Public Land had entered into a purchase agreement with the seller in this particular instance. The city then entered into a purchase agreement with the Trust for Public Land, and we had planned for simultaneous closings to take place where the city would be vested in title on the date of the closings of those transactions. The property owner, prior to closing, did terminate those agreements, and therefore, here we are today.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that clear for people that are just learning about this situation. I don't want to think we're just taking someone's house. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion, and I have a second. Seeing no further discussion, let's vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question has come up since Mr. Braden's not here tonight, and he was the one who had asked us to pull this next item off the table, if we should wait, or what the council's desire was on this.
This is my recommendation, because the low-speed vehicles and the regulation relating to electric bicycles both were on Rodney's list of things to discuss tonight. And Captain Howell is not here either, from the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department, to weigh in on the discussion. So if it pleases the council, I'd like to go ahead and pull these two items from tonight's agenda in light of the fact that Mr. Braden's not here and Mr. Howell's not either, and we'll just schedule them to be on the next meeting. Is that
Do you need that in a motion
Yeah,
form
let's
from
do that in a
council?
motion and a vote.
I'll make the motion to pull those two agenda items.
I'll second it.
I would just recommend that the motion include continuing it to the next agenda, or to the next city council meeting.
Absolutely.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. It has to be a super majority vote, and I think we have one. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Go ahead, Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4E, excuse me, is regarding the franchise agreement with Gulf Power and the undergrounding agreement with Gulf Power, and we're pleased to have Special Counsel Mr. Sheff right here to take us through our update.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, public. Thank you all for having me here yet again. Really glad to be here. It's always a pleasure. Thanks. Briefly, things are looking real good on the franchise front and on the undergrounding agreement front. We've had a lot of back and forth, but we've really with one decision that you all need to make tonight, and I've got a recommendation embedded in the memo that you have. Really, we're pretty much there on the franchise agreement itself. The highlights are it would take the franchise fee rate from 4% to 6%. A lot of numbers in my brain. I think that will generate something like an extra $750,000, $800,000 a year in revenues. Yay, got those numbers right. It will retain the city's right to purchase. If we don't get an undergrounding agreement that we like within 2 years, we can exercise the right to purchase. If we do, then that's great. And if we don't, and then another year lapses and we don't exercise the right to purchase, then that lapses too. That's a lot of good protection for you. It is contingent on us getting an undergrounding agreement that is satisfactory to us. I will tell you, I've been in close touch with my counterpart at FPL, Mr. Rubin. I believe we're going to get there on that in fairly short order. He's working on the rate case from his side. I'm working on the rate case from the side of customers, and we're both real busy. But, you know, I'm pinging him, and we're working in the right direction here. I believe we're going to get there. The one decision y'all need to sign off on, because it's a business decision, is I had asked that we be allowed to sign up for 2 phases within 3 years. They pushed back and said 1 phase in 2 years. Phase is whatever we do in the first contract, the first undergrounding facilities conversion agreement. And I think this is a good thing. I think we should go along with that. Beyond that, my advice, and there's a lot more work to be done on the financing side of this, but my advice to y'all, and y'all may or may not know this, I've been working on this stuff for literally 31 years, since I first got involved with Golden Beach's undergrounding project years and years ago. My advice is make this first phase as big as you can. We got a real good credit on the storm restoration cost savings that the utility experiences queued up for the first phase. There's some potential additional funding coming through that I've been talking to Mr. Porter and Ms. Strickland about. And you know, those are decisions to be made down the road, but my advice is go forward with this.
I have a question for you along those lines.
You bet.
So your recommendation, instead of just doing the bridge to Main Street, which was 1.3 miles, your recommendation is make phase one from the bridge to Airport Road?
My recommendation, based on the newer information about additional financing that may be available, financing support that may be available, is do as much as you can afford. And that's something that we can work out over the next 2 years, or the 2 years starting with the date on which the franchise agreement becomes effective.
Kevin?
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Chef. Appreciate you being here and all the work that you
here.
and the team and FPL and everybody is doing. Can you dive in a little bit deeper on the one phase in 2 years? So let's just say we go as much as we can do. What step is after that for us to now begin a phase two? Is it a whole nother agreement, the same process as starting over, or how does that work?
The first agreement will be what I would characterize as a one-off agreement with Gulf Power Company, probably executed this year. It'll be in a form that'll be attached to the franchise agreement. After that, as you know, Gulf and FPL are now one company. Sometime, probably January 1st of next year, FPL's tariff will take over. So when we get to phase two, it would be under the terms of the FPL tariff. They have a good, solid provision for giving avoided storm restoration cost credit. In their tariff, it's a flat 25% of if it's 3 miles or more, but we're not going to have to worry about that. And contiguous, so if you do 4 miles and then 1 more mile, you still get the 25%. But that will kick in then. I think that credit is going to be less than what we would get in this first phase contract, because this first phase contract has the storm restoration cost credit value that we get based on the horrific costs that Gulf incurred restoring service following Hurricane Michael. So what happens next is there'll be a new contract, probably in a form, probably in the form called the Underground Facilities Conversion Agreement that is in FPL's tariff now. Gulf doesn't have any such thing. They've just kind of always done them as they go along, and that's how they want to proceed this time.
Sure. And just to follow up, if you don't mind, I guess I just want to make sure that, so I understand, is it starting over the negotiation table all over again for underground agreement for phase two, or
no,
further along since we've already done phase one?
Let's say we get it together, the financing falls into place, and we're able to do 8 miles, a third of the city, something like that in phase one. So I'm making these numbers up, something like that. And then 4 years down the road, we get to phase two. That would be governed by the FPL Underground Facilities Conversion Agreement tariff. That really spells out every single item that is required to be included in determining the cost payment that the city would make. It's called a contribution in aid of construction, or a CIAC. It's all spelled out. It starts with the cost of the undergrounding minus the cost of equivalent overhead, plus some offsets, minus some offsets, and the big minus offset is the storm restoration cost credits. They will be whatever they are at the time. It's not really starting over. It's not starting over like this time. This time was new, and it was complicated by changing from old Gulf to new Gulf to FPL, and tying in the franchise agreement, and honestly, Ken Rubin and I having to figure out, well, how are we going to do this? Because it really is kind of a one-off deal because of the way everything has evolved. So it's next time, you just, by my hypothetical, 4 years from now, we say, okay, we want to do the next 6 months. You pay your engineering deposit for the binding cost estimate, which is some non-trivial amount of money. It's probably $35,000 or something like that, but it actually gets engineering work done. Those numbers that then will produce a customer cost estimate from FPL that will say, this is the equipment cost, this is the labor and materials cost, this is the vehicle cost, these are the credits you get, and then you decide what you're going to do with that. Then you have decisions to make as to who you're going to hire to do it, because under the PSC's rules and FPL's tariff, and Gulf's too, you have the right, the city have the right to do all or part of the work yourself. And so it's not going to be involved like it was this time.
Thanks, sir. I got a couple more folks lined up here to ask you a few questions. Mr. Destin.
Chef, appreciate the time and effort you put into this. I had a couple of questions, though. I noticed when I read through the franchise agreement, it dictated that the increase in the franchise fee, which is, what, a third? Or 25, whatever.
Councilmember, it's a 50% increase from where we are today. It's
right.
4% to 6%.
It says that money can only be spent on undergrounding. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
And if for some reason, I was here in 2008 when the bottom fell out and our tax revenues went down by 40%. So if for some reason we had to pause, suspend the undergrounding, would they stop collecting that franchise amount? It sounds like they have that authority, huh?
I will say, I cannot, this is a city ordinance that embodies a franchise agreement.
Right.
We can ask my friend Mr. Johnson, but I cannot imagine that they would stop collecting the franchise fee. I think that particular issue, that particular component of the franchise is more as between the city and the people of Destin. I don't believe, and I've actually been in similar situations in other franchises I've worked on, I don't think FPL or Gulf Power cares what you do with the money. This is a commitment that council wanted in here at the time that we drafted this, so that the people of Destin would know we're going to spend the money on undergrounding.
So that was our idea.
Yeah, and that they're not, I will just say, I cannot imagine in the hypothetical you described, or any other, if the city decided you needed to spend it on something else, I don't believe that FPL would have any issue with that.
Reckon we'll get that out of them?
We can ask Bernard.
Well, that's right, Bernard. Mr. Johnson, you going to pony up that money if necessary?
No, it's not a question of ponying up. They just still be collecting 6% and remitting 6%.
Yeah, I'm just giving Mr. Johnson a hard time.
Okay.
Let's go back to our talk about the phase work, which is another, having gone through those very, very bad times and then just gone through the pandemic. My wife would say, I see a black cloud everywhere. I like to think I'm just realistic. When we extend the phase out to include another segment, and some of this money will come from our finance guru, it looks to me like we have, with the increase in the franchise, enough, what is it? I'm sorry. It's about, I think, 700,000? And that will, or theoretically, could fund a bond that would be, how much? 20 million? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Oh, you're doing the
Yes,
no-nos, okay.
my initial calculations using the increase from Gulf Power to our, to our franchise agreement, plus some other sources that I've been looking at, the city could issue bonds in the amount of up to $50 million to accomplish this task.
Okay, so the 700,000 would cover $50 million bond? Is that what you're telling me? Because that's the question I'm asking.
No.
How much of a bond can we pay with 700,000?
Here, just a second, I'm calculating. Yeah, the $700,000 would provide annual payments on bonds of far exceeding $50 million.
I'm sorry, how much?
It would depend on the rates.
Or exceeding,
Far exceeding $50 million bond.
okay, well then that would give us the ability to pay. What I want to make sure we don't do is exceed the ability to pay with our 700, because that means we'd have to go somewhere else in our budget and come up with the money.
Yes, sir. Yes, well, we'll look at the whole picture. We're going to look at the whole
Yeah.
picture with our capital improvement plans and everything else.
Okay, and have we gotten an absolute price on the undergrounding that we can actually put our arms around yet?
Not yet, no, sir. No.
Okay, well, that's another component that could be worrisome then. We've got a rough estimate though, don't we, of, what was it, 10 million for the first segment, 8 million?
That's a very old rough estimate.
It is.
Yes, our project managers are working on a better estimate.
Okay.
And
but
they're going to phase it out for us as well. And I was waiting for their estimates first before I ran all the numbers with the different funding sources.
in any event, this stuff doesn't become real until we pass an ordinance. So by then, we will have a more concrete cost evidence.
That's correct.
Which we absolutely have to have before we could vote on an ordinance with any sense of security.
That is correct, yes. And I need some better estimates before I can go out to the markets and
Okay.
look at the different sources.
Okay, well, Chef, I'm satisfied with the, what appears the franchise agreement says. Now, it's basically, is there any difference in that and the one we entered into 30-some years ago, as far as the buyback provision is?
Not substantively. The old agreement provided for the value to be determined by arbitration as provided in Florida law. The new agreement provides that we get together and negotiate, and if we can't agree, then either side may file a declaratory action in circuit court to have the value determined pursuant to the standard formula for eminent domain. The big difference, eminent domain valuations, the big difference there is that pursuant to the franchise agreement, each side bears its own costs, experts and attorneys' costs.
Right. And the
Which is
only,
a big deal.
the other difference, of course, is we were not anticipating or trying to enter into a undergrounding utility agreement, which is tied to the buyback or buyout in this. And that's fairly standard language with the you've got so much time after you fail to go forward with that?
This is a one-off.
Okay.
Councilmember Destin.
Okay, there is no standard language.
There's no
Okay.
standard language addressing this.
Okay.
If I could just fill in a couple of blanks answering your questions. Utility Consultants of Florida, one of the main parts of their first work order is to give you an opinion of probable cost for the whole project. And so you should have that. Second, you will have plenty of time because we've got some weeks, I think a month or less, before we have the form of the undergrounding agreement. That'll be attached to the franchise.
Right.
I think realistically, I think we can get it to council for approval in September. If we had to do it sooner, it'd be a push, but we might be able to get it done. But I think September is a good date to shoot for. That would get the money flowing. After that, you got 2 years to negotiate the underground facilities conversion agreement. And I know that Ms. Strickland and the utility consultants folks, Mark Porter and his crew, are looking hard for additional funding that we can use. There may be some federal match money coming through the infrastructure package that's
I hope it does.
working its way. Knock
Yep.
wood. But so that's all in the works, and we have time to work on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your work and diligence and your presentation.
Got a
That's all I
couple
have,
more,
Mayor.
got a couple more questions for you, Shep, so don't go away. Ms. Saber?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Mr. Destin took care of two of the questions that I had, and you clarified it with the final statement that by September you would be able to bring us something. And that's what I was looking for is, where we're at, what the next step is, and how much sooner can we start making things, especially for the public that are watching, to understand where we're at in this process, because they've been hearing about it for almost a decade now. So we kind of want to give them an idea that this is moving, we're going forward. So thank you for all you've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve y'all.
Dr. Ramswell?
So I just want to clarify a few things for tonight. We have no recommended motion, and I know this is for discussion to sort of help shape what we want to see in an agreement, correct?
Correct.
So what decisions or what feedback do you need from us? One agreement, two phases, one agreement, one phase? What are you looking for?
One agreement within 2 years and a one-year follow-on for us to exercise our option if we don't get there, as opposed to 2 phases in 3 years. It's just a sense of the council that I'm looking for, that the one phase in 2 years would be okay with y'all.
So
That's really where we are.
So I think what Shep, through motion, I'll entertain a motion to that effect right now, because that's what Shep just wants to make sure that he's got the guidance from the council to proceed at that point, because.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll second it.
Yes, what he just.
Yeah, one phase, thank you.
One phase, 2 years.
So we don't need to, at this point, discuss segments or anything of that
No.
nature? That will
No,
be
we need more information
subsequent.
on financing, engineering scope, and so on, that utility consultants will be providing, and that working with them and with Ms. Strickland, we'll be getting the package together.
This motion and
Try to
vote
figure it
just
all out.
solidifies
Just-
Shep's position in the
Right.
negotiation process.
Thank you very
Just
much.
to clarify for the city council too, I believe y'all are aware of this, but we do have a lot of new council members. This will be an ordinance, so we will of course have to advertise and bring this back to first reading. Eventually, it's not there yet. I think Chef indicated hopefully in September we'll be there. But I think this direction today on this motion will provide Chef and me sufficient direction in order to incorporate that into the ordinance. And then we'll work on the undergrounding agreement form and bring it back to council in a few months.
Any further questions?
Do we want to see if Mr. Johnson has anything to say? Since he is here.
You are here, so.
It's not normally part of our motion process, but we haven't heard from Mr. Johnson tonight, and he's trying to hide, so we'll put him on the spot.
I'm just hanging out back there. Bernard Johnson, Gulf Power. As you can tell, conversations with our folks, our legal folks, and Chef have been very cooperative and very progressive, and we support those efforts. So we'll continue to work out these details. But to answer your question, yeah, we wouldn't stop, once we started the 6%. So, but yeah, and then we do support what we're going to do. So work with utility consultant of Florida, working on those numbers to try to get where we need to be. But it's a lot more favorable now than it was in previous times. So new members on council side, new members on our side. It's
Very
Lance?
good, thank you.
Lance, you got a question for Mr. Johnson, or just a comment?
Just a comment, sir. I was just going to see if Ms. Strickland had anything else she wanted to add before the vote.
Yeah, sure. Just, so I don't have my fancy software here, but back of the napkin, excluding time value of money and the assumptions on the franchise and how the funds would grow over the years with usage and so forth, this increase of 2% to the franchise agreement would cover a bond issuance today of about $20 million, assuming that we got the same rate as I got a month ago.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that because my math hadn't said 50 million, and I was going to talk to you about that after the meeting.
All right.
And I had one other observation. And it goes back to what we would do if extra money, if there was any, if it's supporting 20 million bond and we only have to do 15, we might have some extra money left over.
Sweet. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good job. All in favor? The motion is unanimous. Shep, you have your marching orders. Thank you much. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. See you
All right,
next
look
time.
forward to having you come back up here again.
I can't wait.
All right.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4F, staff is requesting council's approval of change order number 8 for Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park, which is a change order just shy of $70,000. The change order is a result of staff and the project manager finding some areas of where we wanted to help with maintenance of the facility that's being built there, also with safety regarding lighting of the facility, and lastly with rerouting electrical so that it better serves the property. So we are asking for council's approval of this.
City Manager, I'll go ahead and make that motion. I move to approve change order number 8 and authorize the city manager to execute.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none?
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Ah,
Comment.
darn it.
It's okay. I just want to make sure that we are, project manager, city staff, outside counsel, whoever it is that's assisting in this project, has reviewed, they feel good, because I know this has been a multi-year project over there. And we have a design, we have a plan, we're building, and now we're changing out block walls and studs, which I'm not a construction guy, but I feel like a lot of that stuff should have been right from the very beginning. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I'm glad we're catching it now, but we're confident that everyone's looked over it and that we should be pretty good to go from this after this change order.
That's my hope too, and I mean, I have checked it, and I know our project manager has looked it over very well.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Let's vote. Ayes have it. Unanimous. So moved. Sir.
Mr. Mayor, can we do a bathroom break before we do G? Because I know this is going to be a lengthy one.
Good call, Mr. Smith. 5-minute break. And all we're doing is we're just missing Mr. King. All right. We'll wait, Mr. King's coming out. Is he in the potty? All right. G2. What was G2, Kyle? Well,
G first and then G.2.
yeah, what?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the agreement with, okay. All righty then. I have to wait for Johnny. He's a present member somewhere. Is he locked in? Took liberty. Somebody must have took him out. Where'd you go, bro? I figured somebody captured you out in the hallway. All right, we're going to start the meeting back. City Manager, item G.
Thank you, sir. Item 4G is regarding the expansion of the Tourist Development Taxing District, and we have Mr. Kyle Bowman to kick this off.
thanks, Lance. So at the last meeting, council directed some legal work and continuing efforts with the county relating to the potential expansion of the tourist development district, taxing district. We have worked really hard on this issue. The city attorney, land use attorney, city staff, all of us have had many conversations with the county and partner municipalities on this. Special counsel Jeff Burns that you hired at last meeting also drafted a report and sent it to you on Friday. And Jeff is available to answer any questions on that item. And Jeff, if you have anything you want to say at the outset, please feel free to do so. He's here virtually.
Okay, I won't try to belabor the point too much, Kyle, because I'm sick and I also don't want to drag the meeting on too long. But as you know, my report reaches a conclusion that the city council should ultimately direct the city attorney or staff to draft a resolution to institute the Chapter 164 ADR procedures for intergovernmental disputes. And the way I reached that conclusion is set forth in the report, so I'm not going to parrot that tonight and read it word for word, because that would take forever. But there are some, I kind of want to explain how I came to that conclusion, the process I went through, so you know it was pretty thorough. And after I got done talking to Mr. Bowman, I did extensive research, and the first thing I came across was the state constitution. And back in November of 2018, the voters voted throughout the state of Florida to approve of an amendment to the state constitution that effectively did away with the value of attorney general's opinions in courts of law or administrative proceedings. Now, it didn't limit itself to AGO opinions. It was all administrative opinions. But that was the first thing that really piqued my interest in this project, because from what I've been told and informed on, the county is basing their entire premise for their expansion on 2 or 3 AGO opinions from, I think, the one from the 70s, one from the 80s, and one from right in 2010, I believe. And it really doesn't matter when they came out, because they have no weight at all ever again after 2018 in the court of law or in administrative proceedings. And so then if you go to the plain wording of the statute in question, which is Chapter 125 or Section 125.01204, there's nothing in that statute that allows expanding an existing sub-county district. And I think there's been a lot of numbers thrown around at some of the county meetings to make it seem like Walton County, who did something similar to what Okaloosa is trying to do this year, somehow acted kind of outside the norm. Well, the truth is 64 counties have attempted to implement TDCs in the state of Florida. 3 of those implementations have expired in the last 20 years. They didn't sunset or renew the ordinance when it came up for the sunsetting. And so there's 61 current TDCs in the state of Florida. Out of those 61, only six were ever initially formed as sub-county entities. The other 55 started from day one as county-wide TDCs. So those 55 can't be considered in the analysis that we have here today. So you have to look at the 6 that started out as a sub-county situation and see what did they do, or if they ever have, to expand into a full county district. And looking at the research based on the Department of Revenue's records, only 3 have actually tried to expand. Let me correct that, only 4 have. Because Bay County this year did do a limited expansion, but not to county-wide. So there's been 4 attempts. Nassau County and Miami-Dade County are the 2 who have never attempted to expand beyond a sub-county size. The others are Monroe County, which did it back in 1984. The second to ever try it was Walton County in 2020. The third, Bay County, about 4 months ago. And then now Okaloosa will be the 4th ever. So there's not a large body of work out there to really say Walton County did it the wrong way. In fact, Walton County, in my research, as I investigated the process they went through, meticulously researched this and actually had a difference of opinion between their TDC attorney at that time, who's now their acting county attorney, and the county attorney at the time as well. And this individual is someone who actually lives at the north end of the county, is a longtime North County individual, and he still came to the ultimate conclusion that I have, that the only way you can expand, you can't really expand, the only way you can go from a sub-county district to a full county and maintain the taxing rate in the existing sub-district is you have to form a second sub-district. And that second sub-district will start out at a lower tax rate and then work its way up ultimately to the 5%, wherever tax rate they seek to utilize. So what does this mean for Destin? Well, Destin, I know their big issue is their voters are going to be cut out of the vote. And that is troubling, considering that Okaloosa County wants to expand to a countywide district and possibly use funds raised in the south end and the north end. Well, the real issue, though, is not what they want to do with the money at this time. It's the fact that they are trying to do something that's not allowed under the law and ultimately will be deemed to be void, most likely down the line, either by a court of law at state court level or an appellate court level. And ultimately, when that happens 2 or 3 years down the line, only the attorneys wind up winning anything, because they're the only folks who make money on suits like that. And I know I'm deriding my profession by saying that, but ultimately it'll be attorneys that make the money. Some of the hoteliers will get refunds, so they then have to pass on to their customers, et cetera, and I detail it on the report. Destin has an opportunity, if the resolution is drafted and brought back at the next council meeting that I recommend in my report, to stop the county from making a huge mistake that will cost all the county residents a lot of money in the long run. And so I know I'm supposed to be focused just on Destin, but I myself have not lived in Destin for the last 12 years. And so I actually live in an area now, Okaloosa County, that would benefit from the proposed expansion. And so I'm kind of acting against my own interests in recommending this to the Destin City Council. And so I ultimately do recommend that the City Council direct staff and the attorneys to work together to bring a resolution back at the next meeting. And that resolution, if passed, would be step 1 on the Chapter 164 ADR process I detail in the last exhibit of my report. It's in that process, just before I get any questions about that process, is not something that's been utilized too much in the state. There is some case law that covers it, so it has been used a number of times, but it's not very commonly used. And it's actually great for a situation like this because you can bring in every other city in the county alongside Destin and the county government if you direct the attorneys to do so. All we have to do is mail, if you do like to move forward, notice to all the other cities. They have a certain amount of time to intervene or appear in the alternative dispute resolution process. it might be a good idea because everyone might have a different opinion than the county and the county's the advisors to the county. In fact, our investigation indicates that might be the case. And so I'll leave it back with Mr. Bowman, and obviously council, I'm here to answer any questions that you have all night long and whatever you need to ask me. I know there were some specific questions that were directed to Mr. Bowman to ask me, and I know one of them had to do with county, whether or not Destin could leave the county. And I actually researched this issue back when I was the city attorney many years ago, and to kind of answer that question off the bat, you'd have to get legislative action at the state level. It'd have to be Representative Maney, and also he'd have to get someone to second it in the House level, and you'd have to get senators. So you'd have to get Senator Gaynor hop on, and they'd have to actually introduce legislation to start that process. And if they passed it through a bill, then it would come back down to the local level to then allow sort of a process similar to annexation take place. And so it's very onerous to do it, to leave a county. And it's been attempted, I believe, 5 times in the 20th century. It was tried. It was only successful one time, and it was very early on in the 20th century, that one time. Every other time it's been unsuccessful. And one time there was a major effort. I believe it wasn't Nassau County. It was right near Nassau County. They attempted to do the same thing. Put a lot of money into it, millions of dollars trying to get it done, and it still never got the legislative push to make it go forward. So I would say it's very hard. It's not impossible, but it's most likely impossible to leave Okaloosa County. Okay, with that being said, I'm here to answer your questions.
Oh, we have some questions lined up. Do we want to make a motion first? Okay, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that was presented. I authorize the drafting of a resolution that will institute the commencement of the local government alternative dispute process under Chapter 164 Florida statutes due to a clear dispute between the City of Destin and Okaloosa County, and to bring the proposed resolution back at the next City Council meeting for public comment, council discussion, deliberation, and a possible vote.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, and this will be a good opportunity while we have Mr. Burns online here to ask questions of him and our city attorney at the same time. So, Kevin, you're up first.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Appreciate it. I have a couple questions. First, does the passing of the resolution by us, does that delay or stop the county from going forward? If they were to pass their referendum language, but we haven't passed our resolution yet, does it stop them from doing anything, or could they still proceed moving forward? First question.
No, it would not. And in fact, actually, let me make sure I was echoing there. Am I still echoing on your side?
No.
Okay, good. All right. So no, it would not stop anything. And in fact, there's no way to actually enjoin, if you decided to actually file a lawsuit at this point in time, to enjoin the county from moving forward with a referendum of this kind. There's case law that have covered analogous situations, not a TDC tax, but other taxes and other types of referendums. And the state courts will stay out of enjoining referendums from happening because they consider it to be too much of a political question. But there's plenty of case law out there where they challenge it on the back end and void the referendums ultimately. There's a lot of case law where that happens, but there's no way to actually enjoin it. And so this is not like an administrative process at the state level where if you start it now, you have to stop doing everything. It's alternative dispute resolution that kind of runs parallel to the referendum. If you do institute it at the next council meeting, under all the timelines under the statute, if everything runs without any extensions being voted on by any of the councils and the boards, then it theoretically would be done right before or right at the referendum. I imagine there will probably be 1 or 2 continuances along the way, not necessarily by y'all, but maybe by one of the other boards, just because it's going to be kind of a unique process to everyone. But to answer your question, sir, no, there's no way to stop it at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I think what you spoke to earlier was annexing out of the county. But is that the same, or is there a different option for not being part of the TDC and collecting our own TDC tax, or whatever you want to call it, separately. So, not
Like
sure if that's the same
creating our own
annexation.
sub-district?
Say that again?
You mean like creating our own sub-district?
Yeah, I mean, stop being part of theirs, and then City of Destin has some sort of own district. So is that an option that you know anything about?
To do that, you'd actually have to get the whole sub-district, the existing sub-district, to vote to dissolve the current sub-district. Or I guess you could maybe do the referendum to allow them to carve Destin out of the existing sub-district as part of that referendum. But in order to get the referendum question on the ballot, you have to get 15% of the registered voters in the current sub-district to sign petitions and then turn those into the supervisor of elections. And so to answer your question, yes, it's possible to get out of the current TDC sub-district, and it would require 15% of the petitions of 15% of the registered voters in the sub-district to sign petitions to get the ballot in question on the ballot for a referendum. Your second question regarding a new sub-district, that actually would be a little bit harder to do under the current regime. You'd have to then initiate the process, probably through the county commission, to form a new sub-district for Destin, or at least require petitions to try to do so as well. There's some other taxes that are only available for like Miami-Dade County that make it seem like if you read the local governmental manual on taxes that you might be able to use those, but when you read really closely, really for tourist taxes, you're really limited to TDCs like this. And so it's possible, Councilmember Schmidt, to do it. It'd be really hard. It'd be much easier to dissolve the current sub-district than it would be to then turn around and form a new sub-district that's just Destin. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. I know there's a lot to discuss, but I like the possibility that it's possible. And even if it's a negotiating tactic to scare somebody, if we are the piggy bank of the entire county, it's a possibility that we could pursue one day. Just throwing it out there. Thank you, sir.
Saber.
Thank you, Mayor. You answered my question, Mr. Burns, whenever you were talking about the sub-districts. Thank you for all the work you've done on this, and thank you for providing this to us. And we'll take it from here. But thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. As most of you know, I attended the commission meeting at 1:30 in Crestview, presenting them with our continued desire to work with them to come forth with a plan that we could support and that everybody in the county could support. And they basically said they had no interest in doing that at this time, although they did play lip service to the fact that they would address our concerns in an ordinance that they have not gone forward to create. And I know that they were tongue-in-cheek, but they said, the comment that came from Mr. Coffey was, well, we'll have it before the day of the vote. So while we still would like to work with them, it's obvious that they don't have a lot of intention. So I'll support this motion wholeheartedly. I would point out to Kevin's question, it takes 7,000 signatures to go forward with that. That's a percentage of the people in the existing district, because you have to remember the existing district is pretty small. You raise almost that many if you run for countywide office so that you don't have to pay the 4,000 qualifying. So that's not insurmountable by any means, and it can be done pretty easily. So that is an option. And while I understand Mr. Burns' proclamation that we cannot slow down an election, it occurred to me that this has to be implemented in ordinance form. The county has to pass an ordinance, which they are still talking about doing it. And I would like to request that he look at if there's any way to slow down the ordinance process. I know in our city charter, we're allowed, through the petition process, we can stop, the citizens can stop any ordinance we're doing up here. I don't know if there's any provision like that at the county level, but I know it's an ordinance process. It needs public hearings, and there may well be something there to look at. because without the ordinance, they can't go forward. I've also spoken to some of our other attorneys who question the ability to go forward with the ballot language with a resolution and not an ordinance. Another question that we need to look at, there are a number of them, and I know Mr. Burns is smart enough to look at all these issues for us, but that would be my request to him, that he look at all the myriad ways. And, you know, one of the commissioners, when I was at the meeting, and suggested that we all could go forward together to sell this countywide with a model like that was used in Walton County or Miami-Dade, flatly said, we are not interested in using the Walton County method, period. Their ballot language, we're not interested in it. So that's pretty hard and fast. And we need to go forward and start this process while we explore what other avenues are available for us.
Mr. Burns, is that on? Mr. Burns, I have a question for you. In your document that you gave the council, it sounded like one of the key reasons to go down this avenue with the motion that's been made is it not only draws a line in the sand of the intent of the Destin City Council, but it also provides a starting point for the two bodies of government that disagree with how things are being handled. It establishes a starting point for that negotiation. Some of the language and discussion I've heard is like, we want to go to the mat with these guys and create a war in Okaloosa County. I really hope that's not the case, because we rely so much on partnerships with the county on so many things that extend well beyond the TDC taxing district. So to keep that in point, is that really this is really the tool to let the other organization know that we're not happy and that we're going to negotiate from this point forward? Or does this allow us more leverage by opening other doors, other recourses outside of recalls and that kind of stuff?
Okay, and this is actually, it's ADR, it's Alternative Dispute Resolution, so it's actually a good way to try to resolve it without going to the mats, as you kind of put it, because this will, it ensures you have at least 3 joint meetings, and really it's 2 meetings and a mediation. And both meetings can be full board meetings, but the statute contemplates the first meeting being designees, so it'd be 1 council member, probably the city manager, the attorneys, and then the same representatives from every board maybe showing up in that fashion to try to lay groundwork for the huge meeting that will ultimately happen between the boards at the second meeting, which has to happen with a certain amount of time in the first meeting. And it's all supposed to be done very formal like that to try to work it out without going to the mats type of situations, lawsuits and whatnot. So it allows both public input and debate between the multiple boards all at once in one setting to try to work it out, maybe try to reach some sort of resolution. And the beauty of it too is it can be ended at any time prior to it being completed. And you can also, I mean, the statute does contemplate filing a lawsuit first or filing it later on. So if you decide to ultimately file a lawsuit, you can always do that after the process, or you can do it now. I think going to the mats would be filing a lawsuit now and then trying to do the ADR process, because if you filed a lawsuit now, it's still going to take a couple of years to probably get it resolved. It'll take a while, and that will kind of create a bad tone ultimately for the ADR process, because y'all really do want to work it out, I'm sure, and I'm pretty sure they do too, ultimately, deep down, without going to the mats and really paying the attorneys, again, like myself, to spend years fighting it for you. So.
I just try to bring a little levity to the discussion, because that's what I thought your intent was, leading us down this path, because it is a path of negotiation and compromise. And you know, I mean, it's real easy for people, us, to get our backs up against the wall. It's real easy for the county commissioners to do the same thing. And I don't think it's going to benefit this city or the county long term. You brought up some great points in your document of how what they're trying to do harms all of Okaloosa County, not just the city of Destin. So I like your approach. And I don't get the vote tonight, but I really support this motion and the direction that you've led us in. I've got up next Dr. Ramswell, and then we'll go ahead and bring it to a vote after that. Okay, all right. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mayor. Mr. Burns, a question for you. If we were to do the referendum to sort of carve Destin out that required that 15%, could we not then, as a city, impose a resort tax, which would then do 4% on transient lodging and up to 2% on food and beverages? So essentially, we would be bringing in our own and able to keep it.
You're asking me a question, Dr. Ramswell, that I'm not prepared to answer at this very moment in time in terms of an alternative tax. And I don't know if that was a question I was supposed to look into for you or not. I know maybe Mr. Bowman, do you have any information on the other tax?
Yeah, I think Dr. Ramswell was talking in particular about the municipal resort tax. I have very briefly looked at that. When the bill that described that tax was set forth by the legislature, it was fairly limited in the municipalities that could essentially levy that tax. We could certainly look at that issue further. I can't say definitively one way or the other based on what I've currently seen whether or not that tax could be levied.
I know one of the conditions was obviously you can't impose the TDT as well as the resort tax, but yeah, if you would please look into whether we could do that without having that TDT.
I might have that answer for you before the end of the meeting, Dr. Ramswell, too, because I think if this is the tax that I'm thinking of, this might be the one that only like Miami-Dade and a few other larger counties down in South Florida kind of used their lobbying power many years ago to kind of carve out a special tax for themselves. I'm not saying that's the answer, but I think it is. But I want to get an answer for you, and I think I can get that for you before the end of the meeting.
It does say that. Though right now, those are the 3 counties that have it, so I'm wondering what we could do to then qualify ourselves to get it, or look at some other sort of local option tax that we could impose along those lines.
Jeff, I do think that is the tax. That was the tax I was referring to as well. That's why I believe it is probably limited to municipalities with a certain large population, but I'm not entirely sure on that because I did not look at that issue in close detail.
Okay. And I'll look into that for an alternative, maybe some similar to a TDC or TDT tax, but not the TDT tax that the city could utilize if they did leave the sub-district. I'll look into that issue.
All right. Well, we have a motion and we have a second, and I have Mr. Destin. Is this something new?
I was just going to reiterate your point that going to the maths is not anything that we want to do at all. We're trying to go down the path that doesn't go to the maths, as Mr. Burns said. But I've been really completely baffled each time I went to the county commission when we could all go together, use the Walton County model, and campaign to pass it throughout the whole county, and they keep saying, we're not interested. I do not understand the logic behind that, and they did not help me understand it any better today.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the second opportunity to speak, because I'm glad we have these opportunities here. I just want to reiterate, I like the direction that Mr. Burns is asking us to do, and it's the direction that I want to go and support as well. It's also the opportunity at this meeting that we're here to discuss options as well with other council members, for us all to be able to discuss those options. And we have a right to the citizens that put us here to look out for their best interests. And if there is a possibility that we can do this tax, like Dr. Ramswell is saying, that we can get 6,000 to 7,000 signatures, I'm not trying to say we leave tonight and go fight the county. That's not what we're doing. But by all means, if we can do our own thing, I'm pretty sure we'll get the signatures, and we'll be able to keep 100% of the money that's collected down here. And it won't really matter about some other stuff because we get 100% of it. And I don't want to get to that point. But if that's what's going to be best for our citizens, because as Mr. Destin said, 2 years ago, the assistant deputy director, whatever, I apologize his title, sat here in front of y'all and the citizens and said that he was going to work with the city. At the commission meeting that I was at, he looked at me in my face and said he will work with us. And as Mr. Destin has said, nobody is working with this yet. So I like Mr. Burns' suggestion, but I also want our citizens and others to know that we're going to continue looking for the best options for everybody. So I'm excited to see. I hope this brings resolution that we all work together, but if it doesn't, I'm glad to know there's potential options that Mr. Burns and Mr. Bauman are going to also look into and do. So thank you for the comments.
I have one quick question, and that is a couple times while we've all sat up here at various times, there have been folks that have brought forward the fact that their receipt at certain businesses around here would say resort tax on it. I'm not sure if that's something separate, it must be, but if that's something y'all can look into as well as why some businesses are doing that. I know one of them was doing it and they shouldn't have been, but I know others continue to do so.
Yeah, I think we would need to look into that a little bit further. Some associations simply levy that tax. They call it a tax, as we've seen before, perhaps with the Destin Commons in particular, and I think the Harbor Walk Village might as well. But that's imposed not by a local government, that's imposed by the Association of Businesses. So that could be what you're probably referring to, but we will look into that and kind of run that down for you as well.
All right, let's take this to a vote. Mr. Burns needs to know which way we're going. Vote is unanimous, so moved. And speaking of Mr. Burns, let's bring up item G2. Go ahead.
Thanks, Gary. The next item is Mr. Burns' special counsel agreement. It is, as we described at the last meeting, at a rate of $225 an hour, and has terms that confine the Burns firm to working on TDC-type issues. There is no limit to this term since we don't know how long this issue will go on. It is effective retroactively towards your last meeting.
I'll make the motion to
Second.
approve the special counsel agreement.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none. Ayes have it, so moved. Lance.
Thank you, counsel. Dr. Ramswell, I'll get your answer through Mr. Bowman before the end of the meeting. I'm going to go start researching it now. That way he can give it to you on the record in front of everyone before you're done tonight, okay?
Sounds good, thank you. And it just, some avenues to explore. We might need to be creative.
All right, take care, everyone.
Item 4H is a very brief update on the tour helicopter situation. We have Ms. Kimberly Kopp online. We have Mr. Webb Warren here to briefly talk about what we do know about this situation.
Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, what I know about the situation is that the contract negotiations were sort of bifurcated into a two-part process whereby Timberview and the county were going to, continue their negotiations, but then separately, they were going to set up separate meetings with the airport and tower and the city of Destin and county to discuss the proposed helicopter routes and to allow the public to review the routes and provide comment. The latest update that I am aware of is that those meetings have been canceled, that it was determined by the tower, I believe, that, and Webb can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that would be canceled and public input would not be allowed on the routes. And I believe the county was very disappointed in that. But with regard to the actual contract negotiations, I have reached out for an update. I don't have one with any specifics right now, but hopefully by the next meeting, I can give you more on that.
Dr. Ramswell.
Ms. Cobb, I know you heard Mr. Caesar speak earlier about the issues with the helicopters, and I'm here to concur 1,000%. If anything, they have been worse since everybody spoke. In fact, I submitted sort of a crude drawing today to the county to show them where they're going from my perspective, sitting in the backyard, how I can see them come up and curve into the airport. So as opposed to being over Commons Drive or over 98 or over the beach, they're literally over that south end of Indian Bayou and into, I think that's Twin Lakes neighborhood behind us. They're literally flying over backyards in the neighborhood. So one of the concerns is obviously quality of life for residents, and looking at these alternative routes. Why do they have to go over the homes? Why can they not go down Commons or down 98 or down over the beach? So anyway, just some thoughts. I did send that to council today for y'all to just take a look at what we're seeing versus what would be more feasible.
Thank you, Dr. Renfro.
Ms. Abear.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to expand that not only at Dr. Ramswell's end, I'm at the other end of the airport, close to where Indian Bayou tees at Main Street, and they have come to the point where they are over the properties and they're now looping across our pool and going on like Main Street towards 98 and then looping out. So it's almost like they have stuck their finger up and said, we're going to do what we want to do. We don't care that we're bothering you. We got the freelance right now. So I want to add to what's already being complained, as also as a resident and as my neighbors have asked me, how can we stop this from getting worse? So there's the end for that too. Thank you.
Ms. Cobb, do you know, there was a 30-day termination notice by either party that was allowable by the county. Have they discussed doing that anymore? Or was that something that they were going to do per the last meeting and just see if they could come to terms in an agreement? Can you give us a status on that, please?
What I'm aware of is that they were going to spend approximately 60 days trying to determine if those negotiations were going to be possible to continue the contract.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I was going to see if we could maybe ask city manager to reach out to the owner and/or the county, see if they would like to come to update the city of Destin and the council on the status of their plans and negotiations. Just like the owner of Gulf Shore Drive earlier was saying that he'd love to have come up here. I mean, maybe we could ask the owner of the helicopters to give us a status update of their negotiations and their plan to hopefully make a better environment. So I don't know if we all need a motion for that, but we could at least throw out a hand to see if they would come by.
Just take that as a notice.
Okay.
City manager put it on his list.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, let's go.
Item 4I is staff looking for council's direction on different ways that we could reward our staff, especially those that have been on board for a long time. As you all know, in the current market, the minimum wage or the starting wages have been very, very, very competitive across the country, and especially right here in Destin. It's hard. There's help wanted ads, signs up in just about every storefront. So we had to increase some of our starting wages, which put them very close to some of our folks who have been working here for 3, 4, 5 years. So we are looking for a way to help reward those folks who have stuck with us through this. And Panama City Beach has recently tried one way to do that, doing an annual once-a-year award to their staff. And I'm going to let Mr. Warren take over and fill in the details.
Thank you, City Manager. As everybody knows, during the 2021 visioning session, a high priority was placed on the city offering and maintaining wages that attract and retain qualified staff. We have been researching different options, as well as also continuing to pursue a wage study, as we promised council we would. And at this time, we were just looking for some direction from council whether we should invest some additional resources in pursuing this option for a longevity award as described in this agenda item.
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor, that staff bring additional details of a one-time longevity award program and bring back proposed details at the soonest possible council meeting.
Second.
I got a motion, I have a second, which opens this up for discussion. Dr. Ramswell.
So just a couple questions. Do we give a bonus at Christmas?
We do provide a small gift card to typically, I believe, is Walmart or Winn-Dixie, but no, there's no monetary bonus that is provided to our employees.
So are we looking at this then as a bonus or more of an incentive?
The way we were looking at this is we have had a lot of employees who have helped shoulder the load when we have had a lot of positions open. And as Lance described, we have a lot of folks who are coming in at a wage that sometimes can approach the wage of others that have been here for a while. So this is a quick incentive is what we're looking at for longevity and to help ease and thank you and provide a thank you to our employees for sticking with us during this very competitive market.
I
real
love
quick,
the idea. Oh, go ahead.
If I could, I just wanted to address the issue of a bonus. With public officials, there is a statute, it's called the extra compensation statute, and it is difficult to award public employees bonuses per se for performance. You can award longevity type awards and one-time monetary payments for things other than work related to performance. So we need to be careful when we qualify it as when we call it a bonus, because it legally cannot be a bonus in that regard.
Understood, thank you. So is there a plan as to how to scale it?
And as we started looking at this, we realized it's going to take a little more resources in order to investigate this, to do this right. And that's when we wanted to come to council and ask if we wanted to invest the time and resources that would require Mr. Bowman's help from a legal perspective as well as staff to pursue this. So yes, there would be a scale, there would be some sort of structure that we could bring back if we wanted to pursue this.
I think this is a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to reiterate, we had this conversation on Thursday, Webb, you and City Manager and Kyle, and our Human Resource Manager as well as Crystal. The conversation was, how do we make everybody on staff feel like we don't want you to quit and come back so you can get paid what the new people are getting hired to be paid. But because our city is so structured and everything has to be done by ordinance, correct, Kyle?
And so we've done some very preliminary research. This, as Teresa indicated, is an issue that came up Thursday afternoon, and we've done quite a bit of research in a short amount of time on it. Again, the extra compensation statute, together interacting with our city charter and existing ordinances, does make it difficult to implement one-time payments to our employees, because the most likely way this would have to occur is through an amendment to our personnel code, and we can only amend our personnel code through ordinance.
And to follow up with that, that was something I felt like as council, we want to take care of our folks. And then secondly, when I found out they got a $25 gift card at Christmas time, and that was all, that we could maybe make it a different, more compensatable Christmas bonus yearly. So I don't want to follow what you suggested, that Panama City does an annual Christmas bonus and turn this into a Christmas bonus. I feel like the team here, we want to do something now for those those employees that have given us a year, 3 years, 5 years, 12 years, 20 years. Give them something now. And I think if we have to do it in an ordinance, I think you wouldn't have anybody up here saying, no, we're not doing that. That's more paperwork. It's really the right thing to do. So I'm all for it. I want to do it now. And then I want to also set up an annual Christmas fund bonus part of the annual budget so that we give them a Christmas bonus more than a $25 gift card. Okay?
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir. And again, this is great and very well deserved. And if the legalities side of things and Kyle and the team can make it happen, let's do it. One question is that I love that we have the cost savings from this year's of positions that we're not currently fulfilled. So we're utilizing those savings and costs to do this, to fund this, which is, it's a great idea. So one way or another, is there a timeline where if we don't do it, can we still use the same funds if we put those on the next fiscal year's budget? If this doesn't happen, if there's an ordinance and takes a long time, are we still able to use the current funds that you are planning on possibly doing if we can move it to the next year's budget if it takes long?
I think these are all, I mean, as we've gotten into this, we realize how detailed it can be and that it's going to require some time, but those are certainly issues that we can look at given the guidance from council on how we would research this.
All right. That's Mr. Destin, you're the last one up.
Yes, sir. And my only question is, if we are going to make this an annual thing, then it's a reoccurring fund source that we need. And I don't know that we can reliably count on that we don't hire all the employees that we put in the budget every year, because we put them in the budget because we think they're necessary. So that we need to give that thought, and we need to make sure that Kyle looks at it to make sure what we're doing doesn't get us into trouble with our labor attorneys who occasionally have to defend us in the court of law. So with those two caveats, I wouldn't mind looking at it at all.
You want us to take it out of the general fund, right?
To clarify, this one-time incentive appreciation is literally a very small amount of money, and it wouldn't be an annual thing. The Christmas thing is the annual thing.
All right.
We're replacing the annual Christmas thing. It looks like anticipating in the future making it much bigger.
All right, we had a motion, we had a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ayes have it, so moved. Another thing to do, Lance?
A few announcements. Next Monday, on July the 12th at 5:30 p.m. in this room, we will have budget workshop number 2. So please plan to attend if you can. We also have the harbor capacity study getting underway within the next couple weeks here before the end of July. Any comments on that, Louis? I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, just to clarify, the work has been going on since March. What has been previously going on is all the research work between staff and the committee that's steering the effort. What you'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks is the actual work on the field, area surveys, interviews, questionnaires being circulated on the harbor, and also a study for the parking lots to see the usage at various times of the day over the course of the summer and also the spring.
Thank you, Louis. We also had the kickoff meeting last week for the Airport Road Curve Safety Improvement Program, and Michael was online with that, and he's got a brief update to tell you the timeline going forward.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We had a conference call last week, I believe on the 1st, with DOT and the contractors involved with that project. And the timeline as proposed during that meeting is as follows. The notice to proceed was supposed to be submitted to the contractor today. The contractor has 15-day flex time to prepare and make that area safe and mobilize equipment. So what you should see within the next couple of days is the addition of variable message boards, and they'll be in coordination with Catherine and the FDOT, Public Information Officer, make sure the word gets out that this project is forthcoming. Additional signage will be installed during that period, as well as maintenance of traffic devices. And then on, kind of like on day zero, the roads will be milled and then subsequently resurfaced. We were assured that Airport Road would have at least one travelable lane in each direction throughout this process. After the road has been resurfaced and temporarily striped, there will be a 30-day cure time for the asphalt. Once the 30 days is up, the contractor will return and apply the high-friction surface treatment. That material will be allowed to cure for 14 days, will probably be, I would assume, temporarily striped with paint, and then the permanent thermoplastic striping applied after the 14 days, as well as the I can't even talk this evening, I'm sorry, reflective pavement marker. Say that fast 3 times. But there's that meeting that we had last week, there was a lot of great discussion, and it seemed like we're going to have a great ability to communicate with each other out in the field as well as with the District 3 office. And that's my update.
Thank you, Michael. Real quick.
Mr. City Manager, I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question. Michael, for the cure time, obviously it sounds like people are able to drive on it while it cures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, the asphalt in and of itself is a kind of an oily product, and so you have to allow that, the oils and stuff to kind of dissipate and work into the asphalt itself before you put any thermoplastic down. Otherwise, you'd compromise the thermoplastic.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify, so it wasn't suddenly going to be, we did one lane and went through all this while the other lane was kept open, and then we had to come back and do the other one. So glad that's not the case. Thank you.
The community center will be closed through the 9th so that the gymnasium can get restriped. Anything else additional on that, Lisa? No, sir. Thank you. Pleased to announce we have a new principal planner, Mr. Stephen O'Connor, and he is here in the room. I'm sure that Lewis is very pleased to have that right hand back again to help him move the cheese around some more. So.
Yes, sir.
Welcome aboard.
Just a reminder that July is National Parks and Recreation Month, and we hope that everyone tuned in tonight and everyone in this room will take time to go out and enjoy one of the parks that Destin offers. And if possible, organize some sort of a cleanup within the park, because we can always use the extra help. As far as code compliance goes, Joey is not feeling well tonight, so I'm going to pinch hit for him. But I did want to recognize Mr. Chris Mercurio, who is online with us tonight, who has been promoted to the Deputy Director of the of the Code Compliance Department. So congratulations, Chris. So we're filling some gaps. Chris, do you have anything to say real quick?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lance, thank you very much for the intro. It's definitely humbling in my short time here as in my capacity as code compliance officer. I've enjoyed it, and I'm now truly honored to be to serve as a deputy director. So thank you very much. It's an honor to work for the city, and I definitely look forward to working with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Lastly, I want to give a big thanks to the Parks and Recreation Department, Public Works Department, and the Code Compliance Department for putting in the long hours over the holiday weekend in preparation for the holiday weekend and actually during the holiday itself. They were out there working on the holiday, and I appreciate them making that commitment to the city to have the fun things happening and keeping us safe around town. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Now, Kyle, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a conditional use hearing tonight. This is Jesse Robinson on behalf of Bamboo Box LC requesting a conditional use. 2102 CU approval for a specialty grocery store. The project consists of renovating the existing 2,528 square foot suite to include a display area, a kitchen, a storage area, restrooms, and a small office. The subject site contains 0.22 acres. The project is being proposed at 1209 Airport Road, Suite 11. If anyone I see the applicant is already here and standing, and if you could please raise your right hand, I'm going to swear you in. And then if any member of staff who plans on testifying could please stand and raise their right hand. And if there's any member of the public here who plans on testifying, please at this time stand and raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Seeing none, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth? All right, thank you. With that, I will go ahead and ask, starting with Mr. Schmidt here, if there have been any ex parte communications on this matter.
No, there has not been.
No, none on my part.
No, none on my part.
No, none on my part.
None.
No.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. And with that, if staff and Ms. Kopp want to go ahead and take the staff presentation portion, feel free.
Kim, you want me to take over?
We can turn it over to staff, sure.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle. Good evening, council. So as stated, this is for conditional use for a specialty grocery store to be located at 1209 Airport Road, Suite 11. The future land use map designation and the current zoning map designation for this parcel is commercial general. So this use is consistent with both intents of the commercial general land use category. This conditional use was reviewed by staff based on the conditional use criteria outlined in Article 7 of our Land Development Code, which consists of land use compatibility, sufficient size and site specifications, proper use of mitigative techniques, any production of hazardous waste, over-proliferation of use, and compliance with applicable laws and ordinances. This conditional use does satisfy all of those criteria, and with that being said, staff does recommend City Council approval along with LPA recommended approval for conditional use 21-02 CU, and we also have the applicant here, as mentioned earlier, to discuss anything if you have any questions for him.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I just was curious, not for, maybe this is staff, but it said that the one use was to provide an additional 7 parking spaces. Is that happening on the currently, I mean, the parcel's already there with parking spaces.
That's right. So currently, this specific piece of this parcel has a gravel lot that's adjacent, or it's connected. So right now, there's no parking on that gravel lot. However, they are to delineate the spots. So they'll put wheel stops there to delineate those extra 7 parking spaces based on the use.
No other questions? Then we'll open up the, do you have any, would you like to make any statements about your project? Okay. Kyle?
Yep. With that, since the applicant doesn't have a presentation, if you could just open public comment and public testimony.
Got it. Thank you, sir. You can have a seat. At this time, Kevin, was that you asking the question? Yes. Sorry about that. At this time, does anybody have any comments they'd like to make on this public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of the public comment portion of the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve conditional use 2102 CU.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Ayes have it. So moved.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
I got a motion to approve and a second. Vote is unanimous. So moved. Last but not least, but it's not last because we have public hearing at the or public comments at the very end. Just to remind everyone, item 7A, Mr. Braden is not in attendance tonight. So Dr. Ramswell, you take the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment and query, I guess. Obviously, we're all aware of the tragedy down in Surfside, South Florida. And we've received a couple emails that have inquired about what processes we have. Do we have inspectors that check buildings, et cetera? And I really look at this as one of those situations where clearly everyone would prefer to be proactive than horribly reactive in terms of just a devastating situation. So I wanted to bring it up tonight and see where we stand in terms of subsequent inspections after we've issued a CO.
Staff?
Good evening, council. I'm trying to think of, once a CO is issued, the building division is no longer involved with that property. The property is now CO'd, you've got a certificate of occupancy, it's now yours, it's your baby. So those types of inspections aren't in our purview per statutes. However, if a structure, if a homeowners association requests to have an inspection done, if they asked us, we would defer them to, you know, you need to hire a structural engineer to perform such an inspection, because that is their expertise in that regards. Now, having said that, if they do pursue that route and they provide us some type of report, you know, stating, you know, hey, they've identified some deficiencies in the building or something, then the city of Destin would step in and do its due process of either issuing like an unsafe building abatement notice, and so it would kind of force hand, you know, you guys need to take care of this issue. So
it falls in the hands of the homeowner or the building owner as opposed to us as a city or the county as a county, correct?
Yeah, could I
Kim,
just
did you want to add to that?
Yeah, we also do have the ability to implement unsafe structure processes if we receive a complaint or have knowledge about a building being unsafe. We do have a process in the code to provide notice to the property owner and to proceed to abate certain nuisances or safety issues. Another thing that staff and I have been discussing, and that's Lewis and Noel and I, building official, the community development director, and I have been discussing, is preparing an ordinance to discuss with the city council that would provide for additional periodic inspections as something to consider. And we were also going to potentially discuss with you the hiring of a structural engineer. And I think Lance also had discussed potentially an RFP in that regard. But this is all something we were going to bring to you for discussion with a little more detail. But you're right, it's a timely topic right now, and I think one that we're all interested in improving in our current code.
Mr. City Manager, did you have something that?
Yeah, just to piggyback what Ms. Kopp said, I did ask staff to develop an RFP for a structural engineer of the potential to bring on board as a continuing services contractor, so we could take a proactive approach if need be to getting some inspections done when that is needed. We currently do not have a structural engineer on a continuing service contract under any of our engineering contracts. So we have our city engineer is working on that document right now, and it should be going out to the street shortly. And when we get the results, we'll bring it back and ask for your permission to bring them on as a continuing services contractor.
Wonderful. I think that's terrific. I know one of the emails I had received that I forwarded on to you was a concern about a particular building here in Destin. So at this point, I would like to direct staff, or city manager, have you direct staff to come back with some recommendations on a process for follow-up, because we shouldn't have to really rely on a homeowner or a complaint to get to that point. So along the lines of what Mrs. Kopp was saying, where, we could do periodic inspections, maybe this block, this month, I don't know, whatever. I'll leave that up to y'all, but if you could bring back some recommendation on a process, I think that would be terrific.
Hey,
Go ahead.
And I have to add to that, though, a city our size, is it common for cities of our size, Kim, to put themselves in a position to have a structural engineer and a requirement to have periodic inspections? This particular city has a lot of buildings now, high-rises, that are in the 25 to 30-year range. So maybe that's something for you and the city manager and your staff to consider too, is what other communities our size have, as far as providing services like that. I guess, Lance, you're already thinking about a contracted engineer, not a hired one.
I actually look at it not in terms of the size of the city, but the fact that we actually have buildings with multiple floors that are at that age limit. So just personally how I would look at it.
Mr. Smith,
If I could follow up, Dr. Ramswell, on one thing you said, and Kim, I think I heard you say that we already have a process. If there's a complaint, that we go through stuff. So we have received a complaint seems very, it seems, I take that as a concern, a complaint. So what was our response to that official complaint that we received based off the process that we have?
If I could respond to that real quick. Mr. Don Smith and I are going out to that property, to those two, I think we've received 2. And we're going out to those 2 specific properties this week, so we've scheduled with them, so we can further attest or, look around and see what we see, and if determination on that, we might say, we feel that you may need to get additional evaluation and then possibly hire our own structural person at the time that, with the RFP to say, hey, can you follow up with this? So that's kind of where we are with that.
Thank you for answering. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And please don't take this the wrong way. I know you're an inspector and you work for the city, but you're not a structural engineer, correct?
That is correct.
But you would have enough insight and education to be able to look at something maybe and say, somebody needs to check this out?
Absolutely. That would be as far as I would go, to say, there might be something here, so I think we need to call on an expert in that. So, yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And, our hearts go out to Surfside, and I actually was in Miami when this occurred and reached out to their council and said that I sort of spoke for all of us and said, I know I stand ready to help however we can. I feel certain our council would too, but we certainly want to do everything we can to prevent a similar tragedy. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Ramswell. I do have a couple of people that want to comment on your comment. So, Mr. Destin?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I had reached out to the land use attorney and requested that they look at this issue also. I would strongly recommend that we get a structural engineer on contract and start looking, because some of our buildings are 40 years old or more. Oh, yeah. And this is not something we want to say, gee, we're sorry afterwards. And so I think Ms. Ramswell was in the midst of making a motion. I would second or make a motion in the absence of hers to direct staff to come back at the next meeting with us with some options. That'll be in 2 weeks, and we need to start moving on this issue so that we don't fall behind.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second.
I didn't know if we needed a motion or direction was sufficient,
Well,
whatever we need.
We just made it official, so I have a motion and a second, and let's vote. Ayes have it, so moved. Dr. Ramswell, is that all? Okay. Mr. Destin?
That was the only issue I was going to bring up. It sounds like we've handled it. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Hebert?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. Thank you both for bringing that issue to the forefront. And I'm glad, did we also reach out to the individual who sent us that email that we were going to work with the owner of the property and get things looked at sooner rather than later?
The one I have, but the other one that came through Facebook, so I think Catherine forwarded that to me. So.
All right. And then the second thing I have is, and I've talked to Lewis about this, about the public-private cooperation for commissioning murals in areas around the city that are in need of revitalization. I've had a couple of business owners talk to me about, do we have any of these artists that, do some of this pro bono kind of work or just like to put their work out, like having a mural on like the back of the wall, whether it's the Dollar General or something like that. And Louis, I think we talked about it earlier, your thoughts on, whether we could get the businesses to let you know that they're interested, or those freelance local artists letting you know that they're also interested in being part of that partnership?
Yes, certainly we could take that approach. Also, it could be part and parcel of Councilmember Ramswell's initial initiative that's pretty much similar to that. So we don't duplicate efforts. I think we could potentially battle those projects together.
Yeah, it sounds
Thank
like
you.
a natural fit with the project I proposed last month. So it would be part of, because the whole concept was obviously decorating the art utility boxes, but then expanding to like a dress-up Destin so that it would incorporate multiple art projects or beautification projects around the city.
Absolutely. Thanks, Louis, appreciate it, and this partnership should be great. That's awesome. Thanks, Mayor. That's all I have.
Mr. King.
Just wanted to say thanks to the city staff for everything y'all did this weekend to make everything go great. I spent a day at Noriega Point right there by the parking lot. I told Miss Lisa this earlier. It was just to commend you guys for there was people all over the place talking about how grateful they were to have people there checking on everything, and to Joey and all the code guys. So thanks, great job this weekend.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, sir. I've had some folks talk about code, submitting a code violation, or, it's late, but a complaint. Thank you so much. And I know in the time and day and age that we're in, somebody could go on Facebook and send Catherine a message and submit a complaint. They probably do. Somebody can go to our website, I think, and click something, and it goes to them. They can call code departments. It seems like there's a lot of ways that you can submit a code complaint. Is there a priority? I want to assume that every complaint gets officially categorized when it comes in. But does the Facebook complaint get sent to code and then it officially gets registered as a complaint? Or can you, Ms. City Manager, is there a recommended way that we want to capture code violation complaints so that they're, without a doubt, being registered into our code compliance department?
I can tell you, I wish Joey was here, but I can tell you that every time he receives a complaint from whatever the media source is, he opens a file on it. So it's recorded and documented. And Webb, did you want to chime in too?
Yeah, I can say that we do get there's a huge variety of ways that a complaint can come in. Catherine, I see what she does on Facebook. I can receive the emails from the city help desk every weekend, and I immediately forward them. I mean, for instance, I'll just give an example. Sometimes people don't go to the right category, so it does not automatically go to code, but I see that, and I will immediately forward, and they respond and put it into the system. So there is a large number of ways, probably 6, 7 different ways, and I think that we do our best to try to get that into the system in a timely manner and forward that over to the code compliance department.
So if you could say the best way to, I guess maybe you can say 100%, but if it's 100% possible to have a code complaint be registered automatically, is that a possibility? And if so, how do you do it?
So Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Thank you, Matthew. With Intergov, he just texted me. With Intergov coming online, that is going to change the dynamics of this, and we're going to have to change our processes. So that is something that it will be our preferred way, and we will be happy to work with public information as well as the code compliance officers to kind of diagram that and encourage that. But I'll be honest with you, people will still gravitate to what they are comfortable with, so there'll be multiple ways we want to capture that, but Intergov will be the future.
That sounds good. And
Hey, Kevin, can I add something
Sure.
to your request? I want to know if a citizen sends a complaint and then 3 days later, they've not received anything, and then they blast us on council and say, here's what I've sent to code compliance, so-and-so, 4 or 5 people. Can you, council, take this for action, find out why these 11 violations are still, quote, violations? So I don't know if that's what you were getting to, but how do they know whether you're working on something so they don't turn around and send it to us and then we send it to you saying, hey, are you looking at these violations, or can you let me know what's going on?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge whenever something is sent to council, and that is another method that we do receive that and we do submit that. I think there's probably a better way that we can provide feedback whenever that comes into there so that council knows that we're on it. But when we get that, we do forward that straight over to code or whatever relevant department. And if it justifies as a genuine complaint, it goes into our complaint tracking system.
Thank you. So at a commission meeting, they talked about the helicopter complaints, and one of the commissioners was highlighting about the airport's website and maybe them redesigning a portion just to make it very simple and easy, exactly where to go to file a complaint. So as you mentioned with Intergov, and that we'll probably work towards that, I would highly encourage that whatever the highest probability of a complaint to be received, that we highlight that and make it as simple and easy as possible, and maybe even take into consideration that internally in the staff, we respond in some manner to every complaint that with the code number or what, I don't know what we can send them to say received, but I would hope that our staff in some way, no matter what manner it comes in, as best as possible, we tell them that it's received or filed or whatever it's called. So if we're not, maybe we can figure out a way to ensure that. So even if it's an email or Facebook or whatever, I mean, I know it takes a lot, and I know we're having a new deputy director, which is great, and we rely on the citizens to bring forth a lot of information to us, and I don't want anything to get missed as best as possible. So just food for thought. And sir, that was it, besides the building inspection thing that Dr. Ramswell already covered as well, so I knocked that off. So, and you're going to talk about the livery vessel issue? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. First up, Mr. Ponder, Mel Ponder, our Commissioner for District 5, and I met with General Kane last Wednesday. It was just 2 of us. When we walked in his office, he had his assistant, 2 attorneys, 2 folks from Jackson Guard, someone representing 2 of their information specialists. So I commented to the general using traditional military tactics of superior manpower and force over his adversaries. So we started out with a chuckle, and basically what it all boiled down to is what happened, what was happening on what we call Redneck Beach prior to the pandemic, and then during the pandemic after we opened up, and the way things were being abused on the property. That's why you had the Jackson Guard there. We have Okaloosa County citizens and citizens from the whole Panhandle can utilize public access onto Eglin Air Force Base property. Most of the time you have to get a permit from Jackson Guard to utilize a lot of their stuff. And with that permit comes a responsibility of treating the environment in a manner that's acceptable to their rules and regulations, or you lose that permit. Well, come to find out, they actually have a permit for Okaloosa Island. If you go to the Matador or what we call Princess Beach, there's signs there, and you got to get a little app, and on that little app, they have to watch this little video about the sea turtles and nest areas and stuff like that before they can access that beach. So Mel and I kind of felt we didn't have a lot of room to negotiate But I did bring up the fact that maybe the National Seashore could take over that portion of the military reservation, because it is such the ecology there is really insensitive, a very sensitive area. It's mainly a wetland other than the little beach area right by the bridge. I mean, it's virtually all wetland. And so it's got nesting areas and stuff like that. And when he brought that up, he actually explored that idea. And when they explored that idea, he stated that the National Seashore said that if they're going to take that over, that they'd close the whole island, including El Matador, because of the sensitivity, and it's a turtle nesting area, stuff like that. So the general says, well, I don't want to do that. So they put up the barriers. Well, the barriers were somewhat successful, keeping people parked on 98 till they started moving their cars a little further down and walking. And the real problem still never went away. So he said he did the best he could. He's keeping the rest of the reservation open right there between Okaloosa Island and the two bridges. The fence is going up. And he did say that if people notice, boaters can still use that area. They have to come by boat. They're not allowed to go. There's signs right on just past the wet sand that says you can't, go past that because of the sensitive biology and biodiversity that's there. And he says the only thing that his office, his park rangers or security police are doing is if they see somebody that pulled their boat up there, put a tent up, and they're picnicking on the dry sand, that they ask them to remove it, and they can stay, but they have to stay, around their boats and stuff like that. So that's just, one of the things that you have to understand is what the military does for Okaloosa County. It's our largest employer. With the BRAC closings, the military is hypersensitive to their property. And so it was the general's decision, and we just kind of thanked him for at least hearing us out. And there'll be a new change of command here, but that doesn't necessarily mean there'll be a change in the approach to that particular piece of property. So that's where we're at with Redneck Beach.
Can he lower the fence so you'll be able to see the sign welcoming to Destin? Because if you look now where those posts are, they're right at about 2 feet into the bottom of the welcome to Destin sign.
We can ask, but I don't think so.
Mr. Mayor, was there any discussion between y'all about allowing us and or the county, like we talked about, to manage, police it, or all that, or do you not even entertain that based upon the way the meeting was going?
We did, and his resolve is pretty resolute. He's, it became such a problem that it was is the only way that he felt he could protect that property and that land. And the National Seashore option was an option because he does want to allow public access to the other areas of the island. So, and like I said, he did just remind everyone that you can still go there. It's just you're not going to be parking on Highway 98 at the base of the bridge or walking over the sand dunes to get there.
And a concern and fear I have is, and I'm not sure if he brought it up, is that now that that's blocked off, if you just go to the west, there's 10, 20, 25 cars parked on the shoulder that they're not allowed to park. So is he going to extend the fence down the entire length of the island, possibly?
There is a fence on both sides.
On the north side.
On the north side, there's not, but we had that, remember Dewey, when they had the wave runners and stuff there, what used to be called the seawall? Well, they put a stop to that too. So I think if that becomes the new Redneck Beach, yeah, he may. So it's just part of it. Actually, the parking on the side of 98, there's nothing but no parking signs there. I think they got it taped off right now because it's a turn nesting area right there that people are walking across. So it's just, it's military property, and if people want to access and have public access to it, there's certain rules and regulations you have to follow, and unfortunately, some folks have violated that usage for us, and so we have a big fence up where we used to not have a fence. So I wish I had better things to say. Lastly, we had some public comment about the difference between livery vessels and charter vessels. And so I got a couple comments that I would like to direct staff to help resolve this situation. There is a big difference between the two, but there is also some things that might not be taking place as far as trying to call yourself a charter operation. If you have a licensed captain on board your vessel and you're taking 6 passengers for hire, whether they're drinking drinks for hire or catching a fish for hire, you fall under the UPV, U.S. Coast Guard regulations. And so there's more to it than just having a licensed captain. And this is one of the things that I want the staff to look into. First of all, I want you guys to take a look at the difference between Florida statutes on charter versus livery vessels and get back to this. The UPV requirements for Coast Guard is, not only do you have to have a captain's license, you also have to have be part of a random drug testing program for all your captains on your vessel. You have to have all UPV requirements, which means fire extinguishers, life jackets with reflective tape and lights on the life jackets. You got to have safety and training courses for your captains. You have to give safety briefings to your passengers every single time you depart. There's also a parking requirement for 6 passenger vessels in this city, and that needs to be looked at. And then the last is when we're trying to make that comparison between a livery vessel, which is just you renting a pontoon boat, versus a charter vessel outside of the U.S. Coast Guard requirements that I just mentioned. And you can go on the U.S. Coast Guard website and punch in UPV, and that'll give you most of the information you need. And that needs to be a requirement if this is going to be part of a BTR or a business. But we do have to look at the difference between a water taxi or parasail vessels that have licensed captains and the gentleman's operation. So I'm not sure if all his requirements are met under UPV. Yes, we'll get to public comment so you can answer some of these questions. I'm giving direction to staff to look into that. So not only will they have clarity because they're the ones that issued the BTRs and permits, stuff like that, but you as a business owner will have that same clarity for yourself. Okay, so I'm not taking a stand on one or the other. I'm just trying to give them a clear, concise direction because you're in my corner. I understand, that aspect of the industry. So that's my directions. If you look into that and then give us all a report, and if we have to change things or change the position that has been done, we'll do that. And of course, we'll hear public comment on my comments. So that's all I got for tonight. So up last is land use attorney.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We waited to the end of this to have possibly a discussion about this particular item, so could we have a
do you want to
question?
wait and do
No,
that
because
after
it's public comment, and I would like to ask, I know Joey's not here, but if a staff member can speak to the notice to cease and desist immediately on Friday, if somebody can speak to that.
Go ahead. I'm just saying I'm done.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'm done.
I'm curious, the gentleman said he had to shut down on Friday, and I just didn't know if there's anybody that can speak to more information on that's here.
Yes, I can go ahead and speak on that. Hi, good evening again. This is Chris McCurry. So, speaking in regards to this violation that was given, a cease and desist, within the email that was given to the property owner, because we didn't have an address for that particular company, which is Charters at the time, or Jimmy's Charters. So I didn't have any record of it. I did know they were operating at a livery site, which is another livery that is operating on the same site. But there is an ongoing investigation. So there's open violations. There is an active violation. So I can't express as what I want to you. I definitely want to give more information, but however, there is an ongoing investigation at this time.
Chris,
Thank you.
did you give him a warning before Friday, before shutting him down?
No warning particularly for his company.
Don't we have a process with our code enforcement based upon notices, violations? It seems like there's a lot of other businesses that we've talked about in the past few months that have time to come into compliance before they just receive immediate shutdowns.
True.
Yes, there is a process. The other livery company that is operating on the site, we gave a letter, a notice of violation. We did not know that there was another because on that particular violation in that livery company, they turned in a shared use. With that shared use that we had no record of, that's when we issued a notice of violation. Because we didn't have any contact or communication or even a point of contact for Jimmy Charters, we issued a violation to the property owner themselves. But to answer your question, we did not give a initial warning.
So does Jimmy's Charters have a immediate cease and desist of operation of his business, or is he able to keep doing what he's doing?
There are, like I mentioned, there's certain parts of the investigation, sir, that I cannot, that I don't want to put too much on the council or give that specific information. However, his cease and desist, all he needs to do is just contact us, and we can further discuss.
I hear what you're saying, and I know you're the new deputy director, and I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat, your first council meeting, but what I'm hearing is that you didn't have contact information for a business owner to give them warnings, to follow the processes that our code department has. So instead of, I don't want to say what you did or didn't do, but you just went to the very end, like we talked about earlier about the county and going to fight them. You just went to the very end and shut them down, is what it seems like. So it doesn't seem like that's the process that our code department is supposed to be following.
It is if they're not licensed to be a business.
We don't know. We don't know. They just shut him down immediately. It sounds like there's some confusion here. So if he's allowed to operate, he should be able to operate. If there's another livery vessel over there, then you guys should fix that with that livery vessel owner. But if Jimmy's Charters is somebody that's not been given the due process to operate or not operate, I think that we're not doing the right thing here for our business owner. If he's allowed to legally do it, and it sounds like we haven't even given him a chance to investigate him because he didn't have his contact information. So I hope somebody can,
Right. Okay.
Lance, how do we fix this?
Honestly, at this point, I would need to defer to Kim. I don't know that anything needs fixing. I know we're getting very close to an area that we should probably not be discussing in a public forum.
I disagree with that, and so I want to know why we're shutting down a business that never had a chance to plead its case, possibly, because I haven't heard any information yet.
So, Councilmember Schmidt, I don't have the answers to this. I was not aware of the shutdown that occurred that you're referring to, but I will assure you that after the meeting tonight, I will get with code compliance staff and figure out what happened here and what is best to do in the future, and we will resolve it, and I'll get back to you with the status.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Mayor, if I may just make a brief comment. We seem to be developing a habit of interfering or interjecting ourselves into these code enforcements, which is not a good idea. And as far as your request to the staff to try to shake out what's a library vessel and what's not, I would say that would be better directed to the land use attorney. We need the professional attorneys to look at these issues for us, and we need to let them come to conclusions. With these sessions where we let the public come talk to us, really what we need to do is make sure the staff understands it's an issue and that they address it. Making comments is not helping them at all and is probably mucking up the code enforcement process, and we need to not do that.
That's fine. That's why I asked the city manager and then I'm Kimberly, the land use attorney, so I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Now, back to you, Kim. You have anything for tonight?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bowman.
Just one thing on the municipal resort tax, and this illustrates a couple things. One, I have a great team because I got 3 separate emails related to this from Preble, Crystal, and Jeff, so I have the answer for you. It's found in the 2020 Local Government Financial Handbook. Just real quick, and this will illustrate how powerful the South Florida lobby is as well. The authorization to levy for the municipal resort tax. Municipalities and counties having a population of not less than 330,000 and not more than 340,000, i.e. Broward County, and in counties having a population of more than 900,000, i.e. Miami-Dade County, according to the 1960 decennial census, whose charter specifically provided or was amended prior to January 1, 1968, to provide for this tax levy are eligible to impose it by ordinance adopted by the governing body. So in short, no, we do not have the ability to levy that tax.
Well, we'll just have to create our own, right?
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowman. Anything else?
That still wouldn't prevent us from dissolving it, though, would it?
Yep.
We can certainly proceed on that track under the statute.
Yeah, but if you can't make your own, if we dissolve it, then we're out $19 million a year. Not a good idea.
Yes, there would not be, we cannot levy a municipal resort tax. That's as much as I can say tonight.
Yeah, so let's try something else. All right, we're going to open up public comment, which will give opportunity to speak, and then we'll wind this bad boy up. So I started that way last time. I'm going to start over here this time. So anybody wants to come, coming once, coming twice, come on up. It doesn't matter. We're not leaving until you're done. So you got 3 minutes. Do your
Maya
best.
Schilder, 45 Ferry Road, Northeast Fort Walton Beach. I'm actually not going to discuss livery because I am part of the cease and desist order on that piece of property. So I'm hoping that we can work it out over that through the investigation. My other question, though, is to Lewis regarding the harbor capacity study. He said something that kind of startled me. First of all, it's July, and we were discussing this whole harbor capacity study being done 3 years ago, I think, but being started earlier in the year. It was going to be started in spring, and then it got moved back, and then got moved back. Okay. I know people who are on the committee and stuff, so I'm just saying, he said something about parking studies in the summer and the spring. So my question there, does that mean this goes into 2022? And if the study goes into 2022, will the completion of the study not be done until our livery packets are due in March? Thank you.
Lewis, you want to address that?
The study will go into 2022, correct. Recommendations will go to City Council sometime, hopefully, the beginning or the fall of 2022.
So then, can I just finish then? So then, once again, moratorium will be continued then, because the study that is holding up the moratorium will not be completed until 2022 is over, correct? Is that what I'm understanding from staff? I'm just trying to get clarification.
I understand. I cannot say that. There's a steering committee that will make recommendations as soon as the study is done. And it'll be up to the City Council to decide whether to continue the moratorium or to not.
But my point is that we were kind of led to believe that the study would be completed this year, and then we will have to submit our packets by spring of 2022. And you're stating that the study itself won't be completed until the spring of 2022, correct? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I don't think the study will impact your ability to make an application.
But the moratorium will continue through
That's
that
correct.
time.
It's in effect now, and it will continue. So, but you'll get your permit application. Come on. Yeah, I hope to make it permanent.
First of all, I'm at my location from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, Jimmy Perkins, 748 Benning. Every day, 7 to 7. I spoke with the code enforcement, David, 20 times. So if they wanted to tell me I was in violation of something, they had 20 times to talk to me. BTR was issued or sent in on May for each single vessel. I had a Coast Guard consultant go over with me that I paid. Every one of my vehicles, we can walk down here right now, has got every life jacket that you're talking about, has a list for my captains to go down, checklists to give to the customers every single time. We're not at Liberty, we are a charter, so we have 2 parking places assigned to us with signs on it, Crab Island Jimmy's Charters, for each of my pontoons down there. We have insured, we have the park stickers from the National Seashore because we visit the island and we visit out there. We've got every single thing that you can think of. I didn't wake up yesterday and say I'm going to start a charter business. I started with my lawyer a year ago. He spoke with the city lawyer. City lawyer said I would be in compliance. And then I've checked every single box, sent 10 kids to school to become captains because they're taking away my livelihood selling ice cream and T-shirts. So I went and I checked every single box. And there's, like I said before, there's somebody else. Why he couldn't answer the question, there's somebody else behind the scenes pulling the strings. And I don't want to name names, but if it push comes to shove, I will drop the names up here because I know for a fact, because every time the code guy came to me and said, hey, you did this, you got pontoon parked in your front yard, is it going to be commercial? Is this? I said, who sent you? He told me every single time who it was. When he come down there, every single time that he came, he said, yeah, you're right. And now, all of a sudden, they don't know who's pulling the chain. I know who's pulling the chain because I know who sent me. These big pontoon companies are behind it, And if you guys want to, if you guys want to be straight up, make him answer this big question of why he was backstepping when you ask him who was, well, he's under investigation. There's no investigation. I got 7 pontoons in Fort Walton, 3 in Destin. The 7 pontoons in Fort Walton are bareboat. You being a charter captain, you know how hard it is to get a bareboat license. I've got the only bareboat approved pontoon company in Northwest Florida from the Coast Guard out of Mobile. I have 3 Coast Guard guys working for me on bareboats. They wouldn't be doing it if I was illegal. I've got 10 charter captains that's running out of Destin. We put a lot of money and time into this to get it right. And for him to say, oh, we couldn't find, everybody in town knows where I am. Code enforcement's been to my house 100 times. Every time they come and say, oh, your people can't come here before work or after work, we stopped it. You people can't do this, you can't do that, we stopped it. So for them to say they don't know where I live, and with the BTRs being held up over there, I'm not going to say they're lying, but somebody's not telling the truth. Okay, sir? My lawyer's addressed it. He sent emails for everything to be kept. That's, from him and what's the city's attorney? I can't think of his name right now.
So I'm the city attorney. We also have a
Kim?
I'm Kyle Bauman. I'm the city
Okay.
attorney. We also have a land use attorney.
Okay,
Kim
well,
Cobb.
he backwards and forwards. So I didn't do this all, just wake up yesterday.
Okay,
It's been done. So
All right,
I
Jimmy.
thank you guys.
We're on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank
So
you,
I
Jimmy.
have what many of you are going to think is a really dumb question because I did not grow up around boats like most of y'all did. And this is, I know, a ridiculous example, but let's say I have an extended Sea-Doo that seats 4 or 6. I think somebody said 6 earlier, and I don't think they make them. But the point being, if I get a captain, a licensed captain, wearing the vest you were talking about, and they're driving the Sea-Doo, and we're charging, could that suddenly become a charter vessel? So literally any vessel could be a
Any
charter
vessel that pays a fee, that has a licensed captain on it, is considered a charter vessel. Jimmy brought that out clearly, that his pontoons are charter vessels and not livery vessels.
That's what I wanted to understand, the distinction.
When we have these issues like this, so because we don't want to try to solve it here at the podium, that's why I gave direction to staff. Jimmy has concerns before this council. We're all aware of it, and we'll rectify this situation, hopefully as soon as possible, seeing how he's been given a stop work order in the middle of July. So that's where we're at, and I appreciate your comments, and I think our staff will be on it, and hopefully we can resolve this.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I just wanted to determine that.
Kim?
No, I was just going to add that I think some of the maybe confusion between what you're saying, Mayor, and what our code says is because our code has a simple definition of what a livery vessel is, and that would disclude vessels with a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain. And what I think you're saying is there are other complicating factors not contemplated by our code. And so I just don't know, that might be causing a little bit of confusion tonight, but we'll certainly give you all more information on it next time.
Kim, call me tomorrow and we'll have that discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, is anyone else? Come on up, Mr. Bagby.
Jim Bagby, 4709 Seastar Vista. When you read that, you understand that that was a local option in a legislative piece, because in 2005, we thought we had the opportunity to get the same thing for Destin. The problem is that you'll face in the municipal resort tax is the county will be adamantly opposed to that, and there's more of them voting for state representative and state senator than there are us voting for state representative and state senator. So it goes back to the same issue of, can we become a separate county? No, because they're not going to let us go, and they wouldn't allow for the local option bill to be passed in the legislature that year. One question I have for the attorneys is, and I understand everybody's concern, I manage a 21-story condo. But does the city have liability if it gets into this inspection regimen? Because that scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you. We get an envelope inspection, we get a roof inspection, we get our fire systems inspected, we get our elevators inspected. We're already inspected, and none of that's by the county, by the way, or if we had been in a city, by the city. It's to protect ourselves, and our owners are responsible. If you look at these condos that have had problems, usually somebody identified those problems, brought it to the board, and the owners voted not to put in the sprinklers, or not to make the repairs, or not to pay the special assessment, or whatever. So I get where you're coming from an empathy point of view, or from a legal standpoint. I would ask the city to look very closely before you get into the inspection business or the construction business, or you start hiring structural engineers to do things, because you're going to have to hire a lot of structural engineers, not just for the high rises. Where are you going to draw the line? 3 stories? 5 story? I mean, I would just have the lawyers help yourself before we get too far down this road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. All right. Come on up. Dang it.
I'll be out here by then, I promise. I don't know about y'all, but I will be. Stephen Tatum again, Matthews and Jones. A couple of things. There was a discussion earlier about the notices of violation that went out over the weekend. There was a bunch of them. It wasn't just Jimmy. There was a bunch that went out based on this exact same issue. And then some other issues that had to do with livery vessels that were legit livery vessels. I think a lot of the problem is that planning staff is there's not enough planning staff to review the livery vessel permits. And now code enforcement's been moved out from underneath planning, so the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Livery vessels are in the process of trying to get their permits, and or they're not livery vessels. Code enforcement doesn't necessarily know that because they're not under planning anymore. And so there's a big disconnect there. Now, you charge an exorbitant fee, in my opinion, for livery vessel permits. There's got to be a reason for that. Hire somebody whose job it is to only look at livery vessel permits. You're making plenty of money off of those permits to hire, staff somebody that's their only job. And it will fulfill, I mean, they'll be busy most of the year, but just by doing that, and when they're not, there's other things they can do. But that's just my 2 cents worth, and don't know if it matters or not. Thanks.
1.5 cents. Wasn't a full 2 cents.
Do I know? Oh.
Thank you, Steve. It is late. Marcy, I didn't ignore you. Come on. Dang it, don't you hate when that happens? Go ahead, Jim.
But you started that side. John Green, 3792 Indian Trail. I'm going to jump on this bandwagon with the condos because I work for the structural engineering firm, and not that person's responsible who looks at it. So I'm sitting back here and maybe what could be done, and I don't know if that's a good idea because I don't run condos, but maybe there could be an ordinance put together that they have to submit some of the records, and then that could get reviewed. And then code enforcement might be able to go back and, go inspect and see and then close them down. So that's all I have.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern during that whole discussion was our liability of town. That's why I was bringing up the town our size. Is that a burden you want to bear? Ms. Bell?
Claude said no.
You just woke Claude up when you poked him like that.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. One thing that hasn't been mentioned here tonight, and Joey might have mentioned it ahead, because he's told me several times about it, so I want to mention it for you guys and the public. As of July 1st, a Florida statute went into effect, signed in law by Governor, what's his name, DeSantis. He's not been on my mind because I'm thinking of other candidates. But anyways, for you to make a complaint to a municipality for code compliance, they no longer are accepting anonymous reports by Florida state statute. So if you're going to report it, you have to make sure that you're telling them who you are. I don't have a problem telling anybody who I am when I'm making a report, but for those people out there who make those phone calls, they need to know that they have to leave their names, or code compliance is not required, and I don't think that they would probably look into it anymore. Let's see. The flag system at the beach. Can anybody talk to me about the flag system at the beach that's not cohesive all the way down? We're finding that I'm being sent pictures where we have a red flag that's put up by, say, the state park or beach.
Can answer that since I worked for them.
Thank you.
In the past. So the Henderson State Beach follows the state. The rest of Destin follows the city that is done by Destin Fire Control. We do have beaches that are managed and controlled by Okaloosa County, but that would be outside of Destin. So even though they do have management of James Lee, the flag that's put outside James Lee is the one determined by Destin Fire Control.
Okay, apparently we have condominiums that put out flags.
They do that on their own.
And they're not changing them. So when they've put them up at yellow and then the flags turn red, they're not changing their flags to red. So we've got a confusion going on at the beaches where somebody is like, well, that one over there is yellow. If they're even paying attention to the flags, let's be very clear. And this one's red. Oh, it must be okay to swim over here. So there's been a lot of, chatter with a lady that has contacted me, and she talks about this texting system that Walton County has, where you get a text. I get one maybe once or twice a day because I signed up for it, and it lets you know what the flag system is for all of South Walton County. They just follow the whole thing. So I was hoping that maybe the city of Destin can get together with Okaloosa County and the beach.
I brought that up with Catherine like a year ago, and I can't remember what your answer was, though. You talked to them, but it was too difficult to implement, or what was?
We literally just talked about this with multiple agencies just last week.
Oh, good.
This is an ongoing dialogue, and it is complicated, but we certainly have been looking at doing this for the last couple of years, but I think it would be a challenge for us to see if we can get it done in this off-season, but it's not an easy task. It's getting a lot of different agencies and a lot of mechanics.
Well, and I'm
involved.
finding myself explaining to people why beach safety is putting up 2 flags at the same time on there, and I'm explaining to them that one's for the East Pass with the currents, and the other one is for Gulf Front beaches. And so we have people who are contacting me that are confused about that.
Well, and Okaloosa Island would follow the county.
No. I'm not talking about county. I'm talking about the East Pass beaches that Destin Beach Safety Fire Department does. And regular Gulf Front beaches here in Destin. They put up, sometimes they have 2 different flags up. Go to their Facebook page, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's easier for me to direct you than me to try to explain it. Plus, y'all don't want to be here all night with me. Hold on, real quick. I went to the Leonard Destin Park for sunset the other day. It was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. Well, great job, guys, great job.
There you go, Lisa. Public.
And I guess the last thing I have to say is every time I'm in this room, all I hear is quality of life, quality of life, quality of life. We are a reactive city. We are not a proactive city. It is getting really old hearing the same old complaints. The quality of life of the residents is being just muffled by so many different entities. And all it takes is a couple of bad apples to ruin it for the bunch. It's only a couple of short-term rental companies that ruin it for everybody. It's only a couple of bad livery vessel companies that ruin it for everybody. It's getting old.
Helicopters.
Helicopters.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks, Marcy.
All right, Ms. Kopp, would you like to address? Ms. Kopp?
Yeah, just really quick on the anonymous code complaint statute. So that's something that came into effect on July 1st. And I have discussed it with code compliance already and with Joey. What I wanted to clarify was that when Ms. Bell said that staff might choose not to start an investigation after an anonymous complaint was made, that's not entirely accurate. The statute actually prohibits staff from commencing an investigation based on an anonymous complaint. So the law now requires that the complaining party provide their name and address. If that's not done, the statute actually prohibits code compliance or code enforcement staff from investigating. So that, I just want to make that clear because code enforcement won't have a choice.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Going once, going twice. Meeting adjourned.